Om Shri Sai Ram. I offer my most humble and reverential pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagavan, Sri Satya Sai Baba. Sai Ram to all the viewers, brothers and sisters. It gives me a great pleasure to bring you another episode of his story through the eyes of his voice. As we begin this evening, let us start with the prayer. As always, I request all of you to please join in. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Sai Ram once again. I have no words to express my gratitude to Bhagavan for giving us this opportunity week after week to hear his story, to hear the story of love, transformation, and compassion of our Lord. Today, I am very happy to bring to you and introduce to you another younger brother of mine. I proudly call him my younger brother, who has done his MBA from Bhagwan's institution, whose parents were actually based in Jamshedpur, Bihar. Before he came here, he had done his BTech. He was a gold medalist there. And then the divine love or the attraction of the search for his Krishna brought him to Puttaparthi, and he became an MBA student. It was a journey, a beautiful journey, which we'll hear very soon. After which Bhagavan guided him to start a charitable trust, which he named as Sai Krushna Charitable Trust. And it does exactly the similar three branches as Bhagavan's any organization does. He is labeled as a managing director or trustee, managing trustee of this trust, through which they run at orphanage, at school, and many service activities. So I am very happy and pleased to introduce to you Brother Vinod Cartic. Sai Ram, Brother Vinod.
Sai Ram, sir, thank you so much for that very warm introduction. Not sure if we deserve too much of that, but yes, I think it's a huge privilege and opportunity to be a part of this session and to be part of the Sri Satya Sai Kathamrit sessions in a way, right? And very privileged to also be called as a younger brother to so many amazing alumni like you, and to be known as Swami's student. I offer my loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet and continue to remain in gratitude for the opportunity of having been a student of his institute and to continue to be his student always. Sai Ram, sir.
It is my pleasure today. And before we start the session, may I request you to start off with a bhajan, and then we'll continue with our story. Since you are a very good singer, and that too, and from your family of singers, I should say so. Please, Vinod.
Sure, sir. It's an opportunity, and yeah, just नीलमेघश्यामला घनश्याम सुन्दरा मुरलीधरा मनमोहना सत्यसाई सुंदरा जगत कारणा परिपूर्णा हे साई सुंदरा शिरडीश्वरा पैतेश्वरा साई प्रेम मंदिरा नीलमेघ श्यामला घन श्याम सुंदरा. Sai Ram, sir.
Sai Ram, thank you for this beautiful bhajan. It does take you to Puttaparthi's feel.
Sai Ram, thank
So,
you for the
Vinod,
opportunity. Yeah.
very good. So, Vinod, I understand before coming to Puttaparthi, you had your own quest for spirituality and Bhagwan. And I believe, let us hear from you. How did this journey of that spiritual chase started in your family?
In a sense, actually, we were fortunate to have been brought in a very spiritual family. In the sense, I think this yearning for God was always there, and I remember that we used to have these discussions around God and you know and Atma and all of that. Even from childhood, we've been exposed to that. There was this elder grandmother, as in there was a my mom's Dodamma, what is called as Badima, who was there. And, so she was someone who was very devoted to Swami. She would say Sai Ram for everything. And, so we used to just hear her when we used to go to my maternal grandparents' home and so on. But Swami as an entity probably came in much later. But I think this quest and yearning to know more about the fact that, we are not just the body, I think that was always very strong. And the exposure to all of this was there. So my parents would were part of different things, listening to, for example, people like Kanchi Shankaracharya, right? Mahaperiyavas, as he's also known. I think reading books about Ramana Maharishi, attending, occasionally going to Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa's temples and so on. So I think that kind of a quest was always there. And at home also, my grandparents, we were in a joint family. So I think uncle, aunt, everybody, we used to have some of these pujas and rituals. But more than the rituals, it used to always revolve more around, trying to go and trying to find out, this quest for something deeper. We didn't know how to define it really, I guess. And as children, we learned things like Bhaja Govindam and, so why is Shankaracharya saying that all of this is so impermanent or transient? That was always there, that thought. But I guess it probably had to lead to something larger when we happened to meet Swami at Parthi, I guess, much later.
So, how did you hear about Bhagavan Baba?
Yeah, so I think I was just mentioning about this mother's Badima, so, right? So she used to always say Sai Ram, and some of that curiosity as to what she's saying was never there. It was like, okay, she says Sai Ram, and we probably thought she's associated. There was a small photo of Sri Satya Sai Baba, and it used to also, in our home also, we had a small picture of Sri Satya Sai Baba, but it didn't really attract attention until maybe the year 1998, wherein suddenly this urge to go and visit Puttaparthi just suddenly came from within. And it was also the result of the fact that one of my cousins, who was applying for the entrance examination in Puttaparthi, was actually saying that he needs to go and write the entrance to join the college there. So we said, okay, we'll all go with him. And that was when we had our first darshan of Swami in Brindavan in the year 1998. And so it was I would say it was entirely Bhagwan's grace. He always says, that you cannot come to have my darshan without my will. So I guess it was completely his pulling and his will that we got an opportunity to have that first darshan. This was in, I think, May 1998. Yes, it was May 1998. And the very first darshan, I remember we were seated somewhere. Actually, we were a little late because we didn't know when to come. We had just come to Bangalore and then came to Brindavan, and probably we came just in time. So we were seated maybe in the 80th row. I mean, for all you know, right, somewhere behind, but got someplace in the Sai Ramesh Hall, somewhere in the center. And Swami came for darshan, and that was such an ethereal experience. All I can say is, for no reason, tears were falling from my eyes, right? And it just felt like the Krishna which we have been searching from childhood, right? I always sort of related very closely to Krishna. Krishna for me was the embodiment, has always been the embodiment of perfection. It was like, well, here is the Krishna. And I remember that there was one moment of eye contact, right, which was a very strong moment. That to me was like an eternity, right? And Swami looked directly at me, and I looked directly at Swami, and that moment, instantly, I knew that this is Krishna, right? And he looked at me and just gave a smile from far, or maybe all of us feel he looks at us and smiles even when from far, but I would like to think of it that way. And that, yeah, and that exactly was for me the moment where I just felt that, yes, this is God. And fortunately, I never had that thought saying, is this God? After that, that thought never came. In that first darshan, fortunately for me, by his grace, that was solved.
Which year was that?
This was the year 1998, when I was in my 10th grade. I had just finished my ICSE board examinations, and I had just come for darshan with family.
Karthik, so 98, when you were in 10th grade, you
Yeah.
had his darshan and eye contact, and you felt him to be your lost Krishna kind of found. But did you have a concept of God in your head to believe that he's that God?
It's a good question. So, incidentally, I used to, by the way, read a lot of spiritual literature compared to maybe the ordinary child. So I had two types of literature that I like to read. On one hand was Noddy, Tinkle, and Amar Chatra Katha. Right? That was my level of reading on one hand, and the other level of reading at the same time. I mean, I would either read this, or I would read Karma Yoga by Swami Vivekananda, or Srimad Bhagavatam of the Ramakrishna Mission, and all of that. Right. So these were the only two types of books that I like to read. There wasn't something in between. So we used to be forced to read some classics and all. Somehow I didn't get much into that. So these two kinds of books really attracted me. And in the Amar Chitra Katha, again, it was great fun, because it was knowing a lot about Indian culture and history. And with respect to knowledge about God per se, I don't think these books give a new knowledge per se, but I just enjoyed reading it. It was somehow as if, well, yes, it kind of completely reinforces the inner understanding, or in some way, it was like, yes, of course, this is true. So that love for Krishna, so that book, Srimad Bhagavatam, which was a tiny book, maybe it was, this big, but had a lot of pages, but it had the entire book with 8 cantos, and how Sutta narrates it to Sukha, and all of that was there. But I would have read it probably maybe 50 times. I don't know. So that was something, a book that I completely loved. And years later, that then translated into reading the Bhagavat Vahini, again, something which at one point in time I probably knew page by page itself. So completely loved reading about Krishna. So maybe I'm just thinking that maybe, that love for Krishna was something that also, built on, based on that reading.
Interesting. So your journey with Bhagwan started like that, and then I presume you got into Samiti and singing bhajans and all that, right?
Yeah, so essentially after visiting Puttaparthi, right? So uh, immediately after that, incidentally, there was something like a dream where Swami came and kind of blessed very well, and I was very happy, thrilled about that. After that, we as a family started attending bhajans in the nearby samitis, because we also liked bhajans a lot. I mean, it was very, very musically pleasing to the ears. It was also about God, and it was so nice, right? And having been to Brindavan in the same year, by the way, we went to Brindavan, and after that went to Parthi also for my cousin's admission. And Parthi was just remarkable. I mean, this is, I'm saying Parthi when physical Swami was in Vrindavan, right? I'm talking of that time. It was just unbelievable that such a place could exist. I mean, to me, it was like, wow, where were we all these years, right? That was how Parthi hit me. Vrindavan is great, no doubt, but you come out and immediately it's Bangalore, unfortunately, right? Whereas Parthi is still in the years 98. I'm talking of, you came out and everywhere it was like, it was pretty similar. So it was absolutely thrilling to be just to see the kind of schedule that was there. So we would go attend the Suprabhatam, Nagar Sankirtan, all of that, and completely enjoyed that. We were there for about 7 days. The food in South Indian canteen, of course, I loved the buttermilk there. So, so all of that added to it. And I think Swami has this beautiful way of making everyone's first visit especially very, very special. I've seen that time and again for innumerable people, and that first visit certainly had such a lasting impression on our minds that he said, we came back and we wanted to automatically go for the bhajans. Nobody really told us be part of it. And then gradually, even starting off Nagar Sankirtan at home, and a lot of different things started taking shape from there.
Okay, great. And then after you had done your engineering, I believe, in IIT, right? IIT Madras.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So Karthik, you did your IIT from Madras, and in BTech you got a gold medal also. Then there is an obvious the trajectory which shows you that it has to be somewhere more profitable and to corporate level. What made you choose MBA, and that to Prashant Nilayam?
So in fact, even in the ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th grades, right, while I was preparing for the engineering entrance, I really wished that there was something in Prashanthi Nilayam on one hand, which there wasn't, because I was quite keen. I wanted to do an engineering, and that being the case, I was very, very keen to say, I want to get into the best college for engineering in India, which happened to be the IITs. In my first attempt, actually, I did not succeed, and it was my second attempt that I actually ended up succeeding in getting into the IITs. So I had dropped a year after my 12th and continued to attend bhajans during that year of preparation and so on. Got into engineering by Swami's grace at IIT Madras, which was a dream institute. Again, Madras was not, Madras had only one reason for it, which was, Puttaparthi is close by. Otherwise, Kharagpur was pretty close to Jamshedpur and so on.
Yes,
But
I would
so
think so.
so I wanted to join Madras because Puttaparthi was close, and it was a huge privilege to also be part of that institute. There was some very good learning there. Met some remarkably good people and so on. But at the same time, it gave me the opportunity to go multiple weekends to Puttaparthi. So I think I would go there at least once or twice a month during the weekends. We had a 5 day week, so the big joy of studying in IIT is that you have a 5 day week as a student, and in your final years and all, you don't really have that many credits also, so you're actually relatively free. So yes, by Swami's grace, I think I did reasonably well, managed to get a gold medal at IIT. And yes, as you did mention, most of the students from IIT tend to go abroad, and it's known as applying for universities in the US typically. So uh, yes, in a way, I literally had MIT USA as something which was offering me a fellowship, and it was more for me to take it at that point in time. However, I think it's only Swami's grace that sense prevailed, and he helped me to make the right choice. I don't think that anybody can go to Parthi, leave alone joining as a student by one's own choice. It was a desire, I would say, yes, to hopefully be close to Swami. But from childhood, there was always this thought that if at all Krishna is on earth, then I have no other business than to be with him. That was one line which was just super clear to me, whether it was in the wakeful state or in the dream state or in whatever state. And so I just wanted to say that, well, if Krishna is on earth, I have to be with him. Now I've seen Krishna. In 98, I said, I have seen Krishna. So it was very clear that I have to somehow get there. I couldn't do my engineering there. So so it was like, okay, there is only one course which is open to me because I did my BTech in chemical engineering. So the only course open to me was an MBA. And so I said I would join the MBA. In fact, initially, when even before joining for the MBA, we usually come with engineers come with different kinds of perceptions. I think so do managers. Each thinks that the other is more important. And as an engineer, I came with this notion that managers are no good. They are typically people who don't know much about the subject, but essentially sit somewhere and are guiding people on where to go. That is what
They
I
just
came
try
with.
to manage things, huh?
Yeah. So it was more a decision based initially on saying, well, I want to join this place because I want to be close to Krishna. So that was the thing. And again, I was very fortunate that I came or I belong to a family where my parents, my elders allowed me to take decisions that they thought were right for me. They would guide me, but then they would always say, the decision is yours. So I've taken a lot of decisions, including waiting for 1 year to get into IIT, and then doing something like joining a university like Patti, where people thought that I was probably doing something crazy, as it appeared to many of them.
So how did you apply then? Then you anything special, or you just applied and got into MBA?
No, so actually, this clarity, I think, emerged over a period of maybe a year in the third year, right? So it's also not easy, because all around you, everybody is talking about what's called as apping, which is going abroad. Everybody is preparing for GRE, and I mean, it's like, well, everybody's very focused on what their GPA is, and here you are, when you have those things already organized, as in the GPA is very good, your grade point average is very good, and everybody's saying, okay, MIT, this fellow will go. So they were not even applying, because if two people apply from IIT Madras, they won't get it. It was known that the topper will get there, and so on. And suddenly, I'm telling people, well, I'm not applying. So, it's open kind of a thing. And then they were like, what? Are you crazy? In fact, I remember that one of my very well-meaning professors, with whom I still have excellent contact and an excellent rapport, is the former director of IIT Madras, by name Professor M.S. Anant, extremely well-renowned professor. He was also my project guide, an amazing human being and someone I've learned a lot from. So he was also asking me, saying, what's wrong with you? Why are you missing this chance to go to a college like an MIT, right? Because I can definitely recommend you, and you already have the credentials. You should be going there. And regarding Puttaparthi, well, there's nothing wrong, but you can always be Baba's devotee, and he has never said that you shouldn't follow the career path or something. You can do a lot of good by going there also, right? So there was some very well-meaning people also with all this advice. Again, I think amidst all the circumstances, right, as Swami says, it's only his pull of pulling the sparrow wherever he is to his place, which gives us the opportunity. So I don't think any of us can claim that we just wrote the entrance and got through. That is that is completely wrong, because he can always just give you a stomach upset on that day, and that's the end of the story, right? So so yes, I was fortunate that I was able to write the entrance. In fact, not just write the entrance. So I was talking about my days at engineering, when one of the things I would do alongside visiting Parthi is to tell my hostel mates and friends that, what, I'm going to Puttaparthi. It's a wonderful place, and it's like I've eaten an awesome laddu, and you're all my close friends. I really want you also to eat this awesome laddu. And believe me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you that laddu, which is what I'll do is I'll get you one to and fro trip to Parthi. I'll pay for your first trip, not because I'm earning, but I really want you to experience it. And if you're willing to come with me, we'll go. Right? I'm anyway going. All you need to do is join me. Your ticket is in my hand. You just need to come with me. So I would throw open this to quite a few of my friends, and one or two of them did actually, bite that.
You?
They did join, and they came. And one of them who joined was by name Abhijit, a very close friend, Abhijit Singh. He again had an offer. He is my batchmate in IIT, my hostel mate, studied in the same course, BTech in chemical engineering, and he had already had an offer of a fellowship from one of the premier institutes in the US, right? It's known as Purdue, and with this fellowship from Purdue, he was wondering, well, that's where he wants to go, and then he just came with me to Puttaparthi, thinking that what's wrong with this guy, because he seems to be normal, seems to be studying well, seems to be eating well and doing everything fine, but he's losing an opportunity to go and study in the number one university for which everybody is vying. So there must be something about this place, Puttaparthi. Let me go and see. And he also came with me. He actually came during Christmas time. And when he did come during this Christmas time, right? So one of the things that, as I said, Swami manages to, give everybody this tremendous first experience, right? So he came there and he saw the absolute silence. He saw the absolute beauty of Puttaparthi, and he was taken aback. He said, it cannot be that a normal human being is coming out walking, and the entire crowd of a few thousands or a few lakhs of people are maintaining pin drop silence. That is unbelievable. I mean, he said that is unbelievable. And this is not people from one place who are all villagers. This is not people who are hypnotized, right? There are people who are extremely intellectual people, all of them sitting there So there has to be something about this person, and he could clearly feel that there was something about the place and this personage. And so he said, he would want to visit one or two more times. He also came, he enjoyed the place. And then he said, ki, I mean, in Hindi, he just told me, "Yeah, tu mujhe pagal to nahi lag raha hai, kyunki you're also doing this. Let me try one thing. You don't appear mad to me. So let me also just try and write the entrance exam, right? So let me also get the form." So just towards the end of Jan or so, Jan Feb, when you get the forms and also the last few days, he also took a form. He also applied, and in that year we also wrote an exam known as the management aptitude test, because that was, we were wondering whether that might be a route to entry to the institute. And we appeared for the entrance in May after our engineering exams. Both of us wrote the exam. By Swami's grace, again, both of us got selected. And of course, then, for the written exam, we got selected. Then there was this process of the interview. You have a group discussion and the interview. And I remember that I had a very interesting interview. I happened to meet an amazing person there. The vice chancellor of the university then was Sri A.V. Sri A.V. Gokak at the time.
Yes, Mr. Gokak. He was the son of
Yeah,
our first vice chancellor, V.K.
yeah.
Gokak.
So this
Yes.
was so this was Sri Anil Vinayak Gokak, who was an IAS officer earlier, a very straightforward person and someone who would be very open about his communication. And he, along with a panel of distinguished teachers, none of whom I really knew at that time, were all sitting on the panel. And I remember that I was called in, and they said, "You know what? You've done your entrance exam very well. Your written exam has gone well, and we also understand you come from another premier university and you have done very well. So why do you want to join here?" And I was honest enough to tell them that, of course, Swami is the big pull. While I also told them that, I'm not really sure about MBA as a program per se, but I think I really want to be close to Swami. And at the same time, I do believe the MBA is good, because my cousin has done his MBA here. I've heard of people who talk of the MBA, but it's not the MBA that's drawing me. It's Swami who is the real magnet who's drawing me. And I
You said
remember
that.
this. Yeah, I did mention this because I didn't know too much, to be frank. So at that point, I remember the vice chancellor then asking me, saying, "Well, do you think that this your urge for Swami will keep you here?" And he put it in a very very poetic way. He's the son of a great writer himself, and he himself used to write a lot. So he put it in a poetic way, saying, "Do you think that this gravitational attraction that you have towards Swami will continue to remain, or will you be like the astronaut who, with the first opportunity, just blows out of orbit?" I am generally not a person, who is very witty or can give quick remarks, and it must have been Swami. So I just said, "Well, sir, Swami is a black hole, and no one can escape his gravitational pull." Believe it or not. And after that, everybody there was a stunned silence for 10 seconds, and they said, "Well, you can go." And I was wondering, oh my God, I said Swami is something black. I don't know what they understood, right? Yeah, something like a black hole or something. And I come out, and the whole panel was roaring immediately. As soon as I came out, they were roaring with laughter. And I wasn't sure, is this positive? Is this negative? Right? And in fact, the next candidate who went in, he came out and asked him, "What did you say, man? Why were they roaring with laughter until even when I entered in?" I said, "I don't know what really happened, but I just hope it's good." So it was a remarkable experience. And yes, as I would say, the blessings of elders and as Swami's grace allowed it, at the end of 2-3 days, the results were announced, and I was so happy, jumping with joy to see my name on the list of selected students. So that's how I happened to get a seat in the university.
That's how your journey as a student started, I should say.
Yeah.
So when you joined, see, when you come to Parthi as a devotee, or when you come to visit Darshan as a devotee, and when you now came as a student, what was your initial difference, initial impression or difference, what you found?
So, I have always been, I used to come very often, as I said, even during my engineering days, and I would try and sit in the lottery and try and get token number one, so that you can get close and have closer darshan. I've been all through all those fantastic times. And I would always look at, the staff gate and wonder, wow, these guys are just coming at, 8:40 and the front few rows are nicely reserved for them. And this is serious fun, right? And I used to obviously be envious of that, thinking, wow, this is great. By the way, I used to go in whites, and there were multiple times that people thought I was a student, right? They would ask me student, and I would say no, and honestly go there. But I wish I could have told them yes. I used to always think, koi baat nahi yaar, ek baar just get in from that gate, big deal. But I didn't do that, but I hoped I would get an opportunity. So, when I cleared this, I was actually totally happy because I knew now that I could confidently, truthfully say yes, walk in through that gate and, come early and have close darshan. So I have got a first row multiple times as when I came through the back gate as a devotee also. But quite a few times, I used to just see that, somebody else seemed to have a greater problem. Somebody was crying, his child was not well, somebody had some heart issue, and when I looked at them, I would just say, Koi baat nahi, aap, you just come in front and sit. I'll sit, take a row behind. So that has happened, I think, quite a few times. And there have been times, of course, when I've sat in front, but I would never touch Swami's feet when he came walking or anything, because I used to think that until he gives permission, I shouldn't touch. So I used to just keep looking at him, keep looking at him. I remember there's even been a time when he literally bent over me to speak to somebody, and I could even smell his robe then. Right. And I was like, wow, very happy. But I didn't have a Pada Namaskar ever. So I now thought that yes, as a student, hopefully that opportunity will come. And exactly with his grace, right? So the results were somewhere around mid-May, saying that we were joining as students. And immediately after that, I had gone back to Jamshedpur because I had to also get some, leave my luggage from engineering, keep some things there, get some new stuff and so on. And I'd gone to Jamshedpur. It was a 2.5 day train journey all the way. And it was hardly 3-4 days since I went back when we got a call from Brindavan. And this was a call for all the new MBA students saying that Swami has asked, all the new students to come to Brindavan, all the new MBA boys to come to Brindavan, and they need to report on 29th of May because on 30th Swami will talk to them, right? And I was like, wow. I mean, this is the ultimate thing you can ask for. Much later, we got to know that this was something which was happening after many, many, many years. I believe it hadn't happened in at least a decade. So we weren't sure. We didn't know that, but I was all like super ready, right? So we had to go quickly get some. That it's summer vacation time, so we were worried whether we'll get the tickets. But jab Malik bulata hai, he makes the arrangements also. So he got a Tatkal ticket in train, right, and traveled all the way back. And I was there on 29th of May, eagerly waiting for the next day. Happened to meet our other MBA friends, and that's when we got to know that out of this batch of about 34 of us, I think there were about 7 students who were toppers in their respective colleges and so on. And it was nice to meet everybody, and everybody was thrilled about this opportunity of, Swami has called us, right? And next day, which was the 30th of May, I remember we were all in the evening darshan, we were all just waiting outside Trai, and Swami came, and, even before he was, moving, he was just moving there, and he literally called all the new MBA boys, which is all of us there, we were all there, called us all close, and in fact, one by one, he literally interacted with almost everyone. And in that process, we were waiting in queue as Swami's chair comes. By the way, at this time, Swami was just beginning to move in the wheelchair. So as he started coming, so I was also waiting, the heartbeat literally increasing, that I could hear it. And when he came close, I remember my first words to him were like, Krishna, when are you coming to Parthi? So incidentally, I've never addressed Swami as Swami. It's only when I refer to him elsewhere that I say Swami or Baba. Otherwise, it's in a one-to-one conversation, it has always been Krishna. And
So
I said,
sweet.
so it was Krishna, when are you coming to Parthi? And prompt came the answer. He said, I will come there after 2 days, he said. And then he looked at me and said, I will give chance, Swami said. Exactly, those were the words. And I was very thrilled. And then I asked him Pada Namaskar, and Swami said yes, and I took Pada Namaskar. So that was my first Pada Namaskar. And I literally remember, like they say this, Dil mein titliya udti hai, right? So that kind of a feeling was there. Like I was like literally feeling that, well, my legs are not on the ground now. Right? So when I came out, and I remember I was telling my friends, what, I got a Pada Namaskar. I was so happy. And many of my friends were saying, don't worry, now you're a student, you have more opportunities. And it was a thrilling moment. So with those very, very happy memories, with that first blessing, even before joining the college, we all left to Puttaparthi the next day to go and resume our to begin our college on June 1st. And this conversation was very nice. I was very happy. I mean, in the happiness, I didn't even realize everything that Swami said probably. And on June 1st, we all joined. We had our, it was a very different day, by the way, right? The way college began, the way hostel life was, there was so much to learn because that was, again, a different, entire different setup. We'll come to that. But this was June 1st. And on June 2nd, right, we were all busy just getting into our early days of college, first couple of days, just getting introduced, speaking about each other. We go to Mandir that day for the evening bhajan. We were just, I mean, we were in hostel, and suddenly we were told that, you know what, Swami has started from Brindavan, he's coming to Puttaparthi. And I just recalled, yes, he said he will come after 2 days. So I have always thought and continue to think that any word that comes out of his mouth, even if by mistake, there is no mistake, but even if it's so called by mistake, that is absolute truth. So I would always be literally, waiting, thinking which word is coming, just go and capture that word and, make sure you record it, because that's absolute truth. So I realized, yes, he said he's coming after 2 days. So yes, he is coming. So this was, I think, the 2nd of June, 2005, when we had joined. Swami came to put from Vrindavan to Puttaparthi. He came, took Aarti at Puttaparthi, and then went back to Vrindavan. And most of the people in Parthi were like, what really happened? I mean, Swami came from Vrindavan all the way to Puttaparthi to take an Aarti. I mean, really, what was this? And he went all the way back to Vrindavan after that. But to me, I mean, the way I read it was, well, I told you I will come after 2 days. I have kept my word exactly to the letter. And it was, I mean, that was the beginning of many more such instances where I saw that he would keep his word absolutely to the dot. So that's how, MBA as a program began, where, Swami completely showered his bountiful blessings on us as a batch, even on those first 2 days itself, first 3-4 days. Yeah.
So when you joined, let me, before, I'm just actually getting excited, and somebody messaged that they want to hear your bhajan. So I just thought again, when did you get your permission to sing in Mandir? How did you get it?
Yeah, so that was, I think, a little bit later, and I'll probably lead to that in the sequence of, how things happened. So Swami went back to Vrindavan on the 2nd of June, and then, again around the 18th of June, Swami came back again. That was with, with some kind of chaos, as typically happens sometimes. So, we new students were all very hyper excited. We all wanted to, take part in different things, and the teachers were also giving us a lot of opportunities. So they said, all of you can start singing in the foyer if you want. Those of you can sing. So we got an opportunity to sing in the foyer first. Some of us.
You start there, yeah.
Yeah, you start there. So, when they heard in the foyer, they said, hey, you know what? You're singing quite well. You can actually sing in Mandir. You need to go and meet Sailesh sir for the auditions. He's the music teacher, the bhajan teacher, and so on. So we also got opportunities to say, some of you can also talk in the foyer. We have what's known as foyer talks, which is addressing the audience. It's like a 5 to 7 minute address. And so some of us signed up and said, well, we can try and do that. Generally, I was not someone who liked to speak a lot. But then some of the teachers said, you know what, you should break open the shyness and go and speak, and it'll be good you speak well. So I said, okay. And I remember it was 18th of June. And I've always, I prefer not to speak too much. But when I do speak, I've been known to be a speaker who speaks a lot of fire sometimes. So that fire, I think, happened to come out at the wrong time that day. And well, it was probably the prayer of a lot of us, the yearning of a lot of us. So it came out in the form of a statement where I said, who says you cannot know God, right? So what? If that was the case, then the Vedas would not talk about God in the first place. And then I said something like, if our prayer is sincere and there, then God will have to present himself. And if Swami is God, he's listening to all this, he will have to present himself. So I probably said 3-4 things in that with all good intent, which was not really taken very well. Things like God can be known, and if Swami is God, right? And some of these things were like, there's this new sort of bird that has come here, and it's chirping too loudly. What's wrong, right? It needs to be put in its place. Kind of a thing was there. And I remember at the end of that foyer talk, there was a lot of hushed meeting of all teachers. And when I went back to the class, right, some of the teachers, when they came, right, they were just looking at me with a grim look. And I remember that one of our most loved and respected teachers, Bhagya sir, he came to class and he told me, don't worry. And I was like, well, what is there to worry? I don't think I had any worry anyway. But, right? So he just said, no, some of the teachers, right? Some people haven't really taken very well to it, but it'll all be solved. Don't worry, he told me. And that was, I believe, the third period. He was teaching us quantitative techniques, and I said, okay, fine, sir. By the time his period ended, right, there was suddenly a commotion, and there was this guard, right, security person who works at the college, gardener security. So he came with a letter and showed it to Bhagya sir. It was a small slip, and Bhagya sir just looked at it and then looked directly at me and smiled and said, "You know what? Swami has started from Vrindavan and he's coming to Puttaparthi." Right? So it was a huge thing for me. I mean, in a way, when I look at it, it was probably Swami saving my seat there in Parthi itself as a student, because I believe it had created enough commotion. And I got to know this 4 days later when the vice chancellor called me and said, "Well, you know what? Initially, we were also very perturbed saying you spoke like this, but I think Swami heard your prayer. He has seen the intent and he's blessed you with his darshan and presence." And he came to Parthi that very day on June 18th. And I remember we all had an amazing darshan. Again, Swami called all the boys close, and we had a very nice darshan. And Swami, of course, continued to stay on in Parthi from June 18th. So he told me, but as an elder, it's my duty to tell you that, you need to probably be a little more moderate in how you speak. And I said, yes, sir, thank you. And I took his advice in the right perspective. But yes, I think it was Swami giving an opportunity. He said, I will give chance. Maybe that's how he gave me a chance to continue as a student itself in the first place.
Man, that is
So,
fantastic. Hmm.
and yeah, so after that, again, continuing with some of those foyer sessions, and then I also went to meet Sailesh sir and requested, saying, "Sir, if possible, I'd like to sing bhajans in mandir." And he heard me and said, "Yes, you're singing well." And he told me the way the process is that it's so once Sailesh sir okays it, you need to go and ask Swami in person for an opportunity to sing. And that opportunity presented itself on the 17th of August, where I remember there was a conference. This was the year 2005, when there was a conference of vice chancellors and all that, which was being organized. And as part of that, I was asked to present a card to Swami, to show a card essentially representing the unity of different faiths: Hinduism, Sikhism, Islam, Christianity, and so on. So lot of amazing boys had prepared that card. I was just blessed to take that card to Swami and show it to Swami, and Swami told me something related to that in the first place. And then I also showed the letter saying, Swami, Krishna again, Krishna, can I sing before you here? Right? And he said, Chala Manchidi, very nice. And Swami gave permission saying, yes, sing. So that's when, he essentially told me that I can start. And immediately after that, right, I was given a chance to sing. And that very first bhajan was Jagat Pate Hari Sai Gopala. And I remember that, that
Why
is
don't
a,
you sing a
yeah,
few lines? I don't mind. That will be lovely.
sure, sir, yeah. जगतपते हरे साई गोपाला, जगतोद्धारा साई नंदलाला, मथुराधिपते कृष्ण गोपाला, मधुर मधुर हे गान विलोला, जगतोद्धारा साई नंदलाला, साई नंदलाला, जय जय गोपाला, 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 जगतपते हरे साई गोपाला.
Beautiful. Karthik, you have seen Swami for many years as you were coming as a student, as a devotee, and then you became the student of Parthi. But incidentally, when you joined in 2005, Bhagwan physically had certain accidents and he was on the wheelchair. How did you feel that Supreme Lord? Just your impression, I would like to hear. And when you saw him on a wheelchair with a very, I would say, restricted movements, and one you could see before was a very energetic Lord moving around. So, What went through your mind? I'm asking
That's
you
a
from a
very.
perspective of a new student. When you join in and you see Swami on a wheelchair, like what is your impression? What did you like? What went through your heart at that time?
So as I mentioned, this was exactly the time when he started moving on a wheelchair, just when we joined, right?
Hmm.
So again, I've been a person who's very straight talking. So I talk internally to God quite often, right? And I didn't know whom to scold, him or me, right, in the first place, to be frank. And it was as simple as this, right? It was like, see, I know you are Krishna, and I know that all this for you is like, I mean, you can turn the earth into sky in no time. And you chose exactly the time when I had to join this college and meet you to do all this drama, right? And so it was literally like I was like literally like in Hindi we say, "Yaar natak band kar yaar," Matlab, literally, right? And I was like, please stop this drama. I know that for you it's not difficult, but over the course of time, of course, it was very clear to me that this is not a 5 feet 3 inch physical form alone that he's representing, right? So that 5 feet 3 inch form, he let it play its role, which means age according to the laws of nature. He didn't interfere with that. He let whatever has to happen to that part. But it was so evident that he represents so much more than just that 5 feet 3 inches. It was just super obvious continuously, both as a devotee when I had come and as a student, that yes, you can probably conceptualize God in that form if you want to, but he's not restricted to just that form. He's operating in so many different dimensions simultaneously, and none of that was in any way hindered by this part of it. It was probably our inability to be able to look at bigger things, which somehow made us believe that unfortunately he's on a wheelchair. And even though physically on a wheelchair, right, I think the opportunities that we got in our early days as students, where he would actually come close, talk, interact, everything was as if nothing had ever happened, right? So those were the days when Ramakatha used to be sung. Two of our students, Om Prasad and Sai Krishna, used to enthrall all of us uh, with those amazing songs. Then we also had, in the future years, we had Meera bhajans happening with a lot of students like Abhinav Sitoke and Kaustup Pare, many of them singing. So we would be absolutely in bliss with that, and the way Swami would interact. So I think there was no stopping Swami physically itself in the first place. I remember that whenever he would see many of us, he would try to hold the railing in the first few years and try to get up, and then he would act as if it's so difficult. And many people used to actually cry seeing that. I would get cry at other time, not for this, but when I saw this, I would be like, So this is. I mean, you have to actually go through this drama in our time, huh? So, I mean, I'm being very frank and open about it, right? So I was like, I really wish, I could have come a year earlier, but of course, I knew that. I think there was, I mean, whatever we got as a batch was something totally remarkable, totally, totally amazing. And I think physically, Swami, though he appeared to be in all this, we knew that he was not just this 5 feet 3 inches in any case.
Did you ever witness? Yeah, I don't want to put it as a miracle as a word, but anything extraordinary, which would kind of reinforce in your belief system.
Um, I mean, so yeah, so I think there is, as I said, I was pretty convinced already that I've met God. So it wasn't about reinforcing was probably in a way not required in that sense, but everything that he did was to me like, okay, like, well, this is how God is to be. So it wasn't like, okay, so if I see Swami and then say, well, okay, this is how God has to be. It wasn't that way. It was more like, I'm seeing God, and so okay, so this is how God is. I mean, it's not how God has to be. It was well, okay, this is what He is. That was the case usually. But yes, there was one thing which got reconfirmed again and again, and as I said, that is about how He keeps His word. I mean, we've read this about Sri Ram, right? Pran jai par vachan na jai, raghukul reet sadachari ai. And that is something which I completely saw with Swami, at least the way he interacted with me. I'm talking about only my personal experience because that's all I'm entitled to actually share, which is that every time he told me something, It might appear impossible, it might appear vague, it might appear crazy. Every word that he said, he kept it to the letter, one after the other, every single time, right? So as I said, for example, I will give chance, Swami said. He came and gave numerous chances. I remember that the very first year, there was something called the convocation drama. And by the way, I used to take part in a lot of dramas also. For example, that particular drama that I said, where we showed this card about the unity of faiths. So I happened to be the compeer along with another brother called Arvind Balasubramania, who's also very well known. So both of us were comparing as MBA students, and there were others who were acting. And that was one such opportunity. And so numerous such opportunities presented. But convocation drama was always seen as something very special. Yeah, I think that's from one of those episodes, of course. So in the convocation drama, we wanted to essentially try and see how all of us could, take part. That was a desire. And I remember that, the cast was prepared, the script was written, and it was 5th of November. The convocation drama is on the 22nd of November. By the 5th of November, dialogues were being practiced, everything was happening. And well, I wasn't blessed to be part of it. And I remember that day I was sitting in the bhajan hall, I had finished a bhajan, and Swami came and he looked at me. So, and he just called me to speak. I was probably holding a letter also, and that letter wasn't something else, incidentally. So Swami just called me, and then he asked, "Tum drama mein nahi hai?" He asked me in Hindi. So I was just trying to figure out which drama is it. I mean, because Swami can speak in multiple levels. So then he said convocation drama. Swami said, and then I said, Swami, I said no, I'm not there. He said, will you take part? He asked me. I said, if you give me an opportunity, of course, Swami, I will. And then he said, you know what? I've told that you should be taken in the drama. He just told me this. Okay. And I was like thrilled. Wow. So after that, I went and met the teacher who was at that time coordinating this, and many of the other boys had, of course, also heard. And that then led to an opportunity to play the role of the hero's friend. And in that particular drama, the way it happens, in just about 30 seconds, I'll share, where, this hero undergoes some health problem, because of which he's not able to take part in the construction of a grand temple, which he himself has actually conceptualized and all that. But then all around him, when he suddenly resigns his job, everybody says, he's leaving in the middle of a project, and they start blaming him. And there is just this one friend who stands by him. And without mentioning that he's his friend, he goes and takes over his role and helps out in the completion. So that was the role that was given to me. I was blessed to play that role as the close friend of this hero and essentially save his grace, kind of a thing. And it was a beautiful opportunity, because in all those different practices, Swami would come. I remember once or twice he looked and asked, who is that boy? And to be just pulled out in a crowd, it's just always nice, right? So many of those opportunities presented. But this is one of those multiple instances when Swami has exactly fulfilled what he said. And there were numerous along the way, I guess, so many of them.
Okay, let me take you back to your MBA when you started off, because you joined in 2005 and MBA has been on from 1986 onwards. So Bhagavan was very much personally involved in all of this setting up of the systems. So you have seen actually what you are seeing and what you have experienced is exactly what Bhagavan has implemented on it. So when you come from another institution before, so you have experience of that life, that hostel, and now you have this. I'd like to know from you, what was your impression about the course as an MBA course? How relevant do you find, and what do you find has helped you today?
Yeah.
How
So I
designed?
think, yeah. So that, I think, is again, something which was for me a revelation. The reason is, as I already mentioned to you, when I joined for the MBA program, I was very clear. Krishna is in Parthi. Come and spend time with Krishna. Job is, MBA was like incidental. You find a reason to be there. But
Yes.
yeah, but the way it panned out was very nice. So I think the MBA curriculum in Parthi is something which is truly remarkable. I think something which is absolutely a role model for a lot of institutions to learn from. People typically believe, that till 10th grade, till 12th grade, you can control students and so on. But after that, they just let them go wherever they want. Fortunately for me, my upbringing was such that I did not want to go into ways like smoking or drinking or, even taking some forms of drugs. Some of these sometimes, right, in bigger institutions are quite common. So I remember that in engineering, for example, IIT is of course a great place where I think academically there are a lot of very open-minded people with a lot of things. But sometimes, you tend to get misguided into some of these things because there isn't that element of a controlling factor. You're probably out of your home for the first time, and people have also completely spoiled their lives and careers as a result of some of this. Of course, it may be a small fraction. And I remember that I was probably one of very, very few people in my hostel who was not into, say, something like a smoking or a drinking, right? And that, of course, huge thanks to my family for bringing us up that way. Again, fun in engineering is very often, quickly moves into an element which can also be classified as vulgarity. So where is that barrier between fun and vulgarity is often tough to define. I came to Parthi, and there I find a completely different perspective, right? In terms of, first of all, a beautiful integration across three systems. So first of all, your learning is not restricted to what's known as a college. College is one of three components of a holistic education system, which also continues in with, say, the hostel, and then mandir.
Mandir.
And yeah, and it's very tough to say where you learn the most, actually, right? You probably learned it's very difficult to really say you learn most in the college, which is what probably people might like to hear. But you learned as much from Swami in the mandir and from so many other people in mandir. I think some of those dramas that we've been witness to, right? You probably have top class, world class entertainment in Puttaparthi Kulwant Hall, which you don't find anywhere, right? For free. Think about it, the level of dramas that we've seen. I mean, a drama like Jayadeva, which was in 2004, I just attended it as a student from IIT at that time. It was my final year, and that just shook me, completely shook me. For people to act like that is one thing, but for you to actually be able to relate and say, "Wow!" I mean, that such saints existed. I mean, those moments can be complete game changers, I feel,
with the
right? So
props,
you,
with the props
yeah,
and makeup and all that. It is.
absolutely, with props, with makeup, and not just that, the way they emote, right? So you literally live that life that they're trying to portray, right? Quite often, you don't get to sort of exhibit some of these inherent talents in a lot of other universities. I was fortunate that yes, at least I could be part of light music at IIT. I was also a light music champion there. I could sing Hindi songs and so on. But in Puttaparthi, I got an opportunity to sing literally like almost every day or every alternate day, every 3 days or something, right? Which was wow, which was so nice because you were also singing for God, in front of God, and you could sing your heart out. You could take part in dramas. There was this unique opportunity. Hostel life was a beautiful learning. So in engineering, we all live in the first year where three people live in one room, but after that, most of us typically have single rooms, right? So it's a single room with a cot and a table. And while I think yes, across institutions, hostel life is always a closer time. You tend to get closer. I still have very close friends from my hostel days in engineering. But come to Puttaparthi, and I can tell you that you suddenly see, wow, this is a big hall where 14, 16, 18 students are in one room, right?
It's a
And you're
it's a
sleeping.
dog. It's a
It's a dorm,
dog.
exactly. It's a dorm, and you sleep on the floor, and your area is very clearly demarcated, right? You have a cupboard on top. You have a small text below that which opens out as a study table. Below that, you have a place to keep your trunk and your mattress, and well, that's your place, right? Defined well, clearly defined. And then you have a bathroom complex nearby, which is obviously a common bathroom complex for everyone to use. And the bathroom complex is also an interesting one because you have people sharing it with you. I mean, you have other animals like frogs also sharing it with you, which could jump from here to there and so on. So again, I was always brought up in a very simple upbringing, so those things did not disturb me at all. But it was great fun to be part of a larger room where everybody, right? Somebody could be the son of a millionaire, somebody is probably the son of a gardener. You just don't care. You couldn't care less about those things. It's the uniformity which that system brought in. You learn to live together. I came as an engineer, right? But I was always extremely afraid of electricity. Continue to be, by the way. So if I have to repair a tube light, I would rather call an electrician, right? I mean, I can't do it. Was how I used to be. But I saw in hostel life, well, there's an art student just going and repairing it, and I was like, should I have studied engineering in the first place, right? And so I think you get to see all of this as part of self-reliance, which is remarkable in the hostel life, right? And then of course in college, I think the way the curriculum is designed is beautiful. I found some courses like, self-awareness and personality development as a very well thought out course. Think about it. You study everything in your 25 years of education except yourself, and that's the most foolish thing that one could do, right? And thanks to the stint at Parthi, where we got to know more about ourselves, what kind of personalities are we, trying to understand deeper aspects of oneself, right? Can you believe it that we all study in India and graduate without knowing the Ramayana and the Mahabharata? I mean, what could be more foolish than not knowing this? We want to say, you know what, I studied Shakespeare. I mean, I studied Shakespeare in 10th and 12th, and unfortunately studied in 12th something known as Hamlet. And I can't believe that's still taught, right? An absolutely disgusting guy who, I mean, I don't know why Shakespeare chose to write about him. And extremely, I mean, it's a very sad, despondent tale of someone who sees all kinds of terrible things happening in his family. His mother marries somebody else, and I mean, really, is this what you want to teach your 12th standard child? I don't understand. I mean, educationists have to think better than that. Come on. And you come to Parthi and, you see a system where you're learning about, discussing about what the Upanishads say. I mean, this is our heritage, and this is what we need to be knowing more, right? To know more about oneself, to know more about what sages or saints have said. And if we think that, there have been great intellectuals in the field of science, like, Einstein and, Bose and Rutherford and, so many of them, Heisenberg, there have been equal number of scientists in the field of the space of, spiritual self-discovery. So Vishwamitra to me is not a myth. Come on, he's an absolute truth who came out with something. He's been a Raja Rishi, someone who lived the ordinary worldly man's life and went around and actually, discovered some beautiful secrets, right? And just because you haven't experienced it, you can't say that that's not tested on the crucible of science. In fact, science is the willingness to experiment and then apply it and say whether it works true. So I found some of these extremely useful. Today in the crucible of life, as I test it, I find, wow, these are probably more useful than what Einstein said, just because they are more personally relevant. I mean, the theory of relativity might probably be a great truth. It may be. I don't know. I haven't fully understood lots of it. But I do know that a lot of things that we learned with respect to, say, how what Krishna did in Mahabharata is equally applicable today, right? So I think values like truth that Yudhishthira practiced, or what Harishchandra practiced, or what Rama upheld as a king. If only we could have kings like Rama, where would the world be? And I think that is what something we need to ingrain in students. And I really hope that that is something which other universities would also learn to apply from. And it's no obvious surprise, right, that it's an avatar which has set the curriculum. It's so obvious. We used to have some tremendous teachers. I'm so grateful to complete naman to all my teachers across, not just in Parthi, but I think from my school days into my engineering. I met some very open-minded people, some very clear thinkers who defined the way whatever I am today. And of course, in Puttaparthi, I would like to recall a teacher like Bhagya sir, right? What a tremendous inspiration. So he's someone who was exceptionally successful in his own career, but chose to live in Parthi and was blessed by Swami to teach so many generations of students and inspire them. And he would speak not just about statistics and quantitative techniques, which anyway you could learn later on anytime in life, right? But he would come and speak about Swami, about leadership, about how Swami is an exemplary leader. And this is not at all with an intention to go and convert people, saying you have to say Sai Ram. No way. That was not at all intended, right? But it was more about sharing experiences and thoughts, which is what we wanted to actually learn as part of MBA. We probably solved fewer case studies than a lot of other IIMs and so on. But then we actually heard more live cases from people's own experience. And those to us became substantially better case studies in the years to come, is the way I look at it now. I mean, what's the point of me knowing what Jack Welch did for GE? I mean, I'm being brutal about it. Here is an absolute capitalist who probably just cheated generations of people with the wealth he made, right? I would rather know about a Nosarwanji Tata who spent his time, right, creating something. And that is the kind of a leader which was discussed in class. In fact, I remember that Bhagya sir told us Swami had very clearly said which are the leaders, corporate leaders, which are the specific people who could be. And Swami has set high standards, right? So you can't just come and talk about just anyone just because he made money. Leadership is not about making money. Leadership is more about how you cared for people, how you enabled others to grow. And that is something which clearly, was there. I think that concept of samasta loka sukhino bhavantu being so critical. I remember that I took up a very different project in my MBA. Again, I would say thanks to Swami for that. So I always had, I always felt this concept of sealing on desires as something which is very, very practical, very useful. And I always loved math as a subject. And I wanted to see, is there some way I can combine these two into an MBA project? Because there were
So
people saying, no,
seeing on desire and mathematics.
yeah, so I'm going to talk about the name of that project, which itself sounds humorous, right? So the name of that project was Mathematical Modeling of Happiness, right? So that's the name
Modeling.
of that project. This is the
Okay.
project I've done in my MBA, and it was very interesting for me personally. I was very clear that I'm not going to talk about how you model the stock market. I mean, there are enough people to talk about all that. I'm not interested in knowing, how to manage working capital for a company. I mean, that's none of my interest areas. But I rather want to know, the key goal of human life is to remain happy always. And I love math. So, is there a way I can mathematically show that what Swami is saying is leading to it? And I was very blessed to have two project guides there. One was Professor Vishwanath Pandit, who also became the vice chancellor there. The other was Professor U.S. Rao, who was again the principal there and very reputed figure. And
The
I remember
campus.
that we used to have, yeah, so we used to have a lot of beautiful discussions, and we would, of course, work on it analytically. I was very happy that I could work on Excel, learn some Excel there, and built a model which was able to actually mathematically show that sealing on desires is the surest way to happiness. I remember we simulated a society, showed what happens if different kinds of people meet, and why is someone like a sage so happy with such minimal belongings,
I would
right?
really love to see this model. I hope we can have a session just to, maybe we can talk separately about it and see how we can share this, the mathematical model of happiness.
Sure, sir. Yeah, I mean, I remember that at the end of it, Professor Vishwanath Pandit also prompted me to, publish it in some journal, and I just sent it somewhere. I also presented it in Patti, and many years later, right? So there were some people who had come from another university, and they actually happened to see this paper, and they met me and said, this is remarkable. They wanted that paper to build on it, and they said, can we, take on from this model and do something? And I was like, more than happy, of course. Why not? It's
Why
happy that
not?
it's serving the purpose. Yeah. So that was, in terms of a specific paper, but in terms of, I think that also led me to think that, it's okay to write about this, but can I actually practice this? And I feel that, to first of all work on a paper like that, right? To have project guides guiding you on a paper like that, most people will say, what the hell are you working on? I mean, in fact I remember some external invigilators during the final viva was he asking me, and how is this connected to MBA, they asked me. And I said, well, right. And I said, well, happiness is connected to just everything you're trying to do. MBA is only a means to it, right? So I said, if it doesn't lead to happiness, what worth is that entire education? And they were very convinced at the end of it and said, well, I mean, they were happy to know that I had taken such a different topic. And the ultimate finale of that paper itself was, when I remember that we had a paper called Insight, a magazine called Insight, which was started by 1 year junior, students. And they asked me, would you like to write in that, right? And they said you could even present your paper. So I remember I presented an abstract of it in that Insight magazine. It was the first edition of it. So Brother Satya Dutt was in fact one of the inspirations for that magazine. He was a year junior to me. And he took that to Swami. And I believe what he told me after that, right? He says, Swami opened directly into that page and he asked, who wrote this? And he said, it's one of our students, Vinod Cartic. And he came and told me, Swami was very happy looking at that. So for me, that was the ultimate, I mean, blessing that you can actually get on a project topic, right?
If you can
So,
share that script with us, maybe I can share with our viewers, those who are interested. It'll be nice.
sure, sir.
On the
Yeah, I think
same
it was.
line, yeah, in the same line of thought, let me ask you, Karthik. See, all these activities which you are mentioning about, in Parthi, and the interesting part is that whether you are a professional course like MBA, MTech, or you are doing a normal graduation, everybody has to follow these. So I don't know if anywhere in the world MBA students are made to get up in the morning, go for Suprabhatam, then go and play sports, play drama, work in the kitchen. All that is a part of life. And let me simplify it. So all these activities we do because there is a belief that they add to your character. Okay,
Hmm.
it's a like value based education system, and these becomes a component of it. But Karthik, looking at practically, how would you explain, or how would you like to explain and share with us that how this all these activities, like you're doing a drama in the college or making a chapati in the hostel, helps you today in your professional life in chasing your ambitions and dreams or making money, to put it bluntly?
Yeah.
Can you see a
So
correlation? You're a mathematician, so I'll
So on one hand, I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that because fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't chase money. But I think the ability to decide not to chase money was itself born out of this. The ability to chase happiness and not money was itself a huge inspiration because I believe that it's almost like what do you call it? I mean, it's like mutually exclusive. You decide whether you chase money or you chase happiness. There are two roads, and both don't lead the same place, right? So I think I just happened to choose the right road.
Well, you don't believe like Tenali Rama? You mix the knowledge and the, you know, happiness and the wealth together.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you don't chase wealth. Wealth will come its way. You
Come
you
its way.
basically you basically go behind something else. But coming to how each of these were definitely very helpful in terms of an integrated curriculum. I think this is a year more than any other when we've understood that life itself is so fragile, right? I think thanks to COVID for that, and I think all of us understand the immense value of health, right? I think Swami always said, if wealth is not lost, nothing is lost. And I used to think, how is that the case? Something is lost. But if health is lost, even Swami said something is lost. And I think this is a year which has made us realize that. So getting up early, doing, Suprabhatam is basically, you can say, awakening the God within you, right? And then energizing yourself with some exercise. I think all of these have tremendous value, right? We would do yoga, we would be part of Vedam. All of that has tremendous value because you build in focus. And I believe that a lot of this leads has led me towards uh, I think again reinforcing a belief that I had, that given 8 hours to cut a tree, I would spend 6 hours sharpening my axe, right? And this is exactly what I call as sharpening the axe. So I believe if you can, Swami Vivekananda used to say this, if he said, if I had to redo my education again, then what I would do is learn how to concentrate. I could pick up facts at will. And think about this. He said this probably in the 1890s or so. And thanks to Google today, we all realize this is so true, right? Why do you really need to know facts? How does it matter? I mean, I'm going to ask a very basic question to everybody who's listening, right? If I was to ask you in the education of, I mean, in the history of India, can you tell me what happened between 1100 AD and 1400 AD? I'm telling you, a lot of people won't be able to answer it. And I'm not asking you about what happened 3 days, in 3 days of Indian history. I'm asking 300 years. And if I was to extend it by both sides by another 100 years, you still might not be able to answer it. So, which means in 500 years, it doesn't matter if you didn't know facts about it. You've lived life as if it just didn't matter, right? So, which means facts can actually be gathered later. But I think the ability to focus, the ability to concentrate and to pick up facts at will, this is something which I think has helped me a lot. And clearly some of the things which helped in that were things like yoga, things like probably the recitation of Vedas, things like keeping your mind focused the right way, right? So like Swami used to say, what's wrong if my students are running behind me? They're not running behind film actresses and film actors, right? Because that I think, yeah, so that enables your mind to, I think, stay steady to a point where you can actually focus and gain things quickly. So quite often people ask me, how is it that you did well in academics? And I think I would say just one thing. I would pay tremendous attention in class. It didn't matter how boring the teacher was, but my willpower would say, I'm not going to sleep no matter what. I'm going to pay attention. And that's all I did, frankly. Neither before nor after did I really study very hard. I used to focus fully in class. After class, I remember we used to have study hours and so on, and I would probably pick up a spiritual book like Autobiography of Yogi, or Sri Bhagavat Vahini, or some of these Vahinis, and I would read them. But fortunately, I could score well just by that ability to focus, which I think comes if you follow this natural hostel schedule that Swami said. In fact, I know Swami has said this, and the Upanishad said that when you're in a state of readiness to receive, then things happen, you get realization like this, right? So it is that readiness to receive that we need to work on, which is not going to come from borrowed book learning of what Einstein said. It's going to happen by self development, which happens through a process of activity, which is what I think the Pati hostel schedule or the college schedule enabled us to live.
Let me pick your brain a little bit more on this topic, and then we move forward. I'll give you a word. People have a concept that for creativity, for example, like today in the management field, also there's a lot of things going on about creativity, and the normal perception is that one needs to be in a free environment. Many of the corporates have designed their organizational furniture and environment in that free mode so people can be creative. That is the concept of it. And here you find, I wouldn't call it an army regimented lifestyle, but in Parthi there is boundaries for everything. And so how do you see creativity and discipline? Do you find them contradictory, conflicting, or supportive and encouraging? Creativity and discipline, how do you see in your mind?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and in my opinion, there's a statement that we often make, which is change of work is rest, right? So rest doesn't mean you leave everything and rest. Change of work itself can be rest, and by the same logic, you know, change of the area in which you're disciplined can also lead to creativity. In fact, will often lead to creativity, not can also, but I would say will often. So I'd like to highlight, right? So for example, in Parthi, right, we did very, very different things. We would go to college and study. We would come to Mandir and have a lot of completely free open time. When Swami is coming for darshan, right? You're actually probably just leaving your mind blank. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but quantum mechanics, quantum physics is all built on an equation known as the Heisenberg's wave equation, which basically says H psi is equal to E psi. Please don't ask me what all that means, because no, the reason I'm
Okay.
saying is not because I don't remember it, but because the person who himself wrote this first. He's known as Heisenberg. He said H psi is equal to E psi, but don't really ask me what psi is. He just called it something called the wave function. And he got this just in a moment of absolutely just blank thinking when he was probably with someone dear to him. He's actually recorded this. I'm telling you a fact. I'm not telling you something arbitrary.
Sure,
So,
sure.
which means those moments of absolute just plain quietness can actually lead to tremendous creativity. I mean, what could be more creative than trying to imagine how the universe started? Quantum mechanics, which people are completely raving about, came from a moment of silence, right? And
Beautiful.
where, so I think the Mandir gave us those opportunities of silence. The college gave us those moments of probably learning from others. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We learned what others have said on similar things. And the hostel gave us a beautiful time to actually try and integrate these two through activity. So I look at it as an opportunity where, through dramas, for example, you don't really get to, there's a right brain and a left brain, right? And the holistic person is one who has both of those developed. So the ability for arts, the ability for science, the ability to speak in public, the ability to be introverted. I think you need to have both. And I think here we got that amazing ability to blend all of this, where we would learn how to speak if need be in a foyer, and how to be absolutely silent and introspect when in mandir. And it's not like somebody's forcing it on you. It's just natural. Nobody around is speaking, so you also don't speak. And when you don't speak, after some time you start listening to what you are saying within. So most often we believe that all knowledge lies outside, right? I need to read what Jack Welch has done. Not necessary. You need to actually read what's within, and the more you start reading your thoughts, you actually develop more and more. And as I said, Heisenberg is a fantastic, I mean, is an example in point.
I think you have proven your point in that way. So, okay, let me move forward for the time. I want to keep it and so that we can capture your story. Uh, so you finished your MBA, and I want to tell people that you got a gold medal in your MBA course. And after MBA, obviously, people expect you to now go and serve the society and make some money. What happened to you? What happened after MBA?
So, I mean, nothing really happened. I was very clear, I think, from the beginning that, as I had said, which is my only business in life. I was very clear. If Krishna is on earth, my only business is to be close to him, right? So, this was a statement I had from childhood. I mean, so, well, here is Krishna in front of me. So, I knew what my business in life was, right? So, I was just trying to do that. And as part of that, I said, well, all of us as students, we say, we'd like to ask Swami for guidance, right? At the end of our thing, because, well, here is our guru, God, master, whatever you want to call. And so I was also one of them, and I said, well, I kind of know that I want to be here for sure. I'm pretty clear on that. But I'll also ask Swami, what is it he wants of me? And I remember I held a letter. This was somewhere around April 2007, just after the completion of MBA. And Swami just told me, serve the public, right? So that was, well, a pretty broad statement. I thought about it. Well, it's nice. I'm sure I've always liked to probably try and serve people and help them to rise and all that. But I said, okay, Swami has said it. I need to take this very seriously because he has said serve the public. And so what I then did is, when Swami had been that year to Kodaikanal, I went around other parts of South India. I was not fortunate to join that entourage to Kodaikanal. So I decided I would just go to a few places in Kodaikanal, in and around South India, and see what I can do. Right. First, let me see the problems of people, and then let me see what I can do. So I traveled by all simple means, by an unreserved train, by bus, by whatever is available, walked some distances, just trying to see what I could do. I happened to see personal problems of people. I started seeing institutional problems, started seeing larger problems, and very quickly was able to realize that, well, the magnitude of the public is just too big. The problems of the public, right? So I was just super clear in my mind that, you know what, this is the way I can serve the public. And I wrote a letter to Swami. Swami, as per your instructions, I have gone and seen what the problems of the public are. The problems are just too big for someone like me to solve. But yes, I can do one thing, and that is to bring their problems to you, because you also said that you like to receive the problems of people and solve it. So I can play the role of this. I have fortunately have a physical access to you. I will bring their letters and whatever I can, and I would always bring letters of people with their problems. And I said, this is something I can do, and I presented this letter to Swami. Swami just smiled and took the letter but didn't say anything. And then I decided, well, I have clarity on what I need to do, which is to wait in Parthi, and I'm going to just wait. How long? I don't know. I'm just going to be in Parthi until Swami says something else. And thus started what's known as the period of waiting. And just for those of us who are not aware, so waiting is a period where, you just wait in Parthi. With what intent? Different people have different intent. Somebody wants a job in Parthi, somebody wants clarity on what to do, and somebody wants to probably just be with Swami like I wanted to, just be there. I didn't particularly want anything. I just wanted to be there. And so that started off a period of waiting in the year 2007. And if somebody asked, many people would ask, okay, so how long are you going to wait? And our typical answer would be, well, I think for the next few days we'll wait and see, right? So you drag it that way. And then, we said, okay, convocation, right? So convocation came. I was fortunate to receive the gold medal from Swami's hand. I remember Swami gave a beaming smile. I was really happy with that. And after that, we said, okay, New Year. And then, we said Guru Purnima is coming. And then it just continued, right? You get used to that lovely life of waiting on the Lord. And think about it, right? How many people are blessed to wait for the Lord? I mean, it's a unique chance when you think about it.
Karthik, how many years did you wait?
So at the end of it, I think I was there between 2007 April until 2011 April. So I was there until 2011 April, after which, I think I was able to satisfy myself that yes, when Krishna is physically on earth, I'm here with him, right? And then he's now asked me to do something. He had given some other tasks, so I had to then get on those tasks too.
Actually, more than the student, I feel the parents' anxiety is high. How did your parents take into it?
Yeah, that's actually that's a remarkable thing. I think a huge blessing because again, as I said, I came from a family which gave me, I think, the right kind of thinking processes, and they also gave me the freedom, trusting their own judgment on parenting, saying, well, in the first 18 years that he's been with us, we've given him the wherewithal and the tools with which he can start discriminating and making decisions. They would of course continue to guide me, and even today in all that I'm doing, I think the support of parents is completely phenomenal. The support of family as a whole is phenomenal. But they would definitely ask me saying, don't you feel you should go and take up a job? Do you think you should? And believe me, this is at a time when my father had taken his VRS already. So there was no, huge source of income or something. He has taken his VRS. My mother has always been a school teacher. So she was earning a very small sum of money, that it was her passion. I had a younger sister, and she was studying in the early years, and then she started working. She was younger to me by 3 years, and then she started working. And there was a time when I would, I had to take money from somewhere, right? So it was either parents, or then even my sister started giving money. And there were probably people in extended families, I don't know, who might have been thinking, saying, you know, what a nalayak fellow this guy must be. Like, he's like a useless guy. He's got 2 gold medals and is sitting with opportunities, and is actually taking money from his younger sister. But I was super clear. There was no sense of guilt, no sense of embarrassment. I knew that I'm doing the most important thing right now, right? Which is to be with Krishna. And when the time is there to earn, of course I can earn it. I had no
But
qualms in that.
didn't, but I'm sure Swami was coming every day looking at you, and he has a habit of, once in a while asking you, why are you here? Go work or something like that. Did that not happen?
Oh yeah. So I think we were about 15 waiting boys or so, right? About all of us put together across different batches. So I would say I was a fledgling waiting boy. Just waited 4 years. There have been people who waited even 10 years, right? So it's been remarkable. And Swami would interact with many of us, right? So in fact, over a period of time, Swami had also asked me to go out as a group to the waiting boys, right? There were at least 2 instances that I recall when he had asked the elders in the ashram, people like Professor G. Venkatraman and Chakravarti sir, to actually address us and guide us, saying, you know what, it's very good that you have devotion and love for Swami, but you need to go out and go, take care of your parents and do stuff. But I think each one had their reason to listen to it or not listen to it in a full way. Personally, I can talk about myself, where there were two things very clear to me. Swami always said, if you have come to me with a reason, don't go back till I have given it to you. Either I have to give it to you, or you have to die in the process. That was one statement that Swami has said multiple times in his discourses. I knew, I knew why I had come there, so I was clear about that. And the other thing was that I think most of us waiting boys had this belief that, we would take instructions from Swami directly, not at all, in no way sort of undermining the huge value and the huge guidance that elders there brought. But we were waiting there for Swami, for something that we had in association with Swami. We were sitting right under his nose almost every morning, literally, right? I mean, it was as much as him saying, hey, come here and this is what I want you to do, right? But when Swami would send word through someone, we just learned to say that, well, we will definitely listen to it with the highest degree of respect. But we also communicated as a group to the elders saying, sir, we completely respect what you're saying. But if Swami tells us directly, definitely we will do what you're saying, sir. And
It's
I think we
actually
stuck to
good,
that.
because once you have a direct relationship and
Yes,
contact with Bhagwan, then
yes,
obviously you would wait for him. So,
correct.
but my point was that, did he never force you to go and, work?
Oh, yes. So that also did happen. I remember that happened in a big way. So, in fact, in the year 2008, so, during one of the interviews that Swami had given to our family, Swami did tell me, to go out. And I said, ha, Swami, I was just trying to play around a little bit. So, since I used to do this internal talking with Krishna anyway, even when Swami did grant an interview, I was equally free and, playing around also sometimes. And Swami probably saw that, and then he became serious at a point in time. I remember in one of the interviews and said, hey, Agya ka palan karo, Swami said, right? Obey my order.
With
And
orders.
yeah, and at that moment, I'm not joking, but it was as if it was Kurukshetra Krishna in front of me. And I was like, I literally like immediately, came to my senses and said, yes, Swami, right? Yes, Krishna. And that was more about he's saying, go and find a job, go and get a job now. So, well, he had ordered it. So that was during the year 2008. So I said, okay. So next day I thought to myself, okay, he wants me to get a job. So what I did is I wrote a letter and addressed it to the chancellor of the university, which is Swami himself, and said, Swami, I seek a job from you, right? So that I can be with you also. And I gave it to him. And Swami said that, hey, I told you to go and find a job outside, Swami said, right? So then it was like, okay, he's not allowing this, so I now need to go out and find a job. So then, we prepared. I just prepared a small something called a resume and passed it on to some of our alumni brothers, right, whom I knew, and said, this is what Swami has asked me to do. Can you just see if there is something? And through that, somebody told me, there is this company which is in Chennai, and there is an opportunity there. He's a Sai devotee, and he'd like to meet you in Bangalore, right? So that person also spoke to me, the CEO of that company, and he asked me to come and visit him in Bangalore with no clue of anything else. What is the job? What is the nature? Nothing. So, well, I took Swami's permission. I wrote a letter to Swami, gave the letter to him, and with his permission, I went to Bangalore saying that I have to do this. And I went there, and I was very clearly not interested in the job. I was very clear I have to be in Parthi. There was no doubt in this regard. So I remember that meeting happened in the year somewhere around, I think, August of 2008, and it was more like a discussion over a cup of tea. So that CEO just called me to his room. We had a very casual conversation. He asked me about Swami. He was also a Sai devotee, and then he told me, "I believe you studied chemical engineering." Yes, and then he just started asking a little bit of questions on chemical engineering and management. So by this time, chemical engineering, I had mostly forgotten. So I think my answers would have been wrong. And wherever I knew the right answer, I made sure I gave the wrong one, right? Just to make sure that he thinks I absolutely know nothing, right? Uh, and then he asked me a few questions about MBA, which was all very, very straightforward. Things like, have you studied marketing? And I said, yes, of course, we have it as a course. Oh, very good. So you know about products? Yeah, we've learned about products. I mean, things like this, right? I mean, so obviously you can't say you've not studied about product when you're saying marketing. That's it. So something as basic. And then he was like, okay, very good. And then he was like, okay, so I think, we are looking for someone. He then gave me an idea saying, we're looking for someone who can essentially take on this twofold role with has a technical expertise and a management thing. It was a solar based company. They wanted me to join literally as a CTO in a very senior position, something like a chief strategy officer, chief technology officer kind of a role. And I was like shocked. I thought I'd given wrong answers, and he's going to say, well, we'll don't mind, but we have someone else in mind. And here he's literally saying this. I was pretty much shocked. I thought, I mean, to literally the thought that passed in my mind is either I am dreaming or he's dreaming or one of us is mad or something, right? I mean, what's going on? But after that, he then told me, he asked me, well, what's your salary expectation? And I kind of beamed. I said, well, here is my chance, right? So I threw an astronomical number to him. I mean, I said, obviously he's going to say, like that's not possible. And as I would have thought, right? He started thinking for some time. He just thought, and in about 10 seconds, he said, you know what? This is fine. And in 9 months' time, we'll double your salary. I was exactly like this, right? I said, what the hell are you talking, right? What are you talking about? I mean, I just can't believe what you're saying. It was already an astronomical number. You want me to join in a CXO position, and you're then saying, here is an astronomical number. You're saying you'll double it in 9 months. It just seems so unreal. And he said, but what? I'm going to send you your offer letter. Please ask Swami's permission and then join also. So I said, okay. And, the meeting ended there. And by the time I reached back, to the place where I was staying in Bangalore, the offer letter was already in my email. And it actually had all these numbers in print, all written. So it wasn't, just a dream. And, well, that particular day, as I got to know later, Swami had just asked in the mandir saying, so Swami used to call me also Krishna boy, because I used to call him Krishna probably. So he was just asking to the singers, somebody else there, where is that Krishna boy? And they said, Swami, he has gone to Bangalore, as he had mentioned to you. And they called me and said, Swami inquired. I was super happy. So I came back to Parthi a day after. And I decided that, what? I'm not really going to show this offer letter or something. I mean, it's okay. It will probably just die its own course. And I was just sitting outside for Darshan. Swami comes. It's the first Darshan I'm having. As soon as Swami comes, he looks at me and says, how did it go? And I was like, Swami, fine. That's all. And he went off. I said, "Theek hai, chalo, musibat tal gayi. The problem is solved." And then I went inside for bhajan. There again, Swami looked at me and said, hey, where is the offer letter? Right? Swami directly asking me, where is the offer letter? And I said, Swami, I just quickly blabbered saying, next day I'll bring it. So after 1 or 2 days, I printed it and just brought it. And Swami asked for it again. I showed it to him. And Swami looked through that and then said, oh, very good, Chennai. And incidentally, before this itself, right, He had said, you be in Chennai also and do this also. And something he had said, where he said you can work in Chennai and be in Bangalore with respect to another project. We'll speak about that later. And seeing this particular offer letter, Swami looked at it and then he asked, where is the salary? And I just showed it to him. And Swami put his hand under it and then said, oh, he just remarked like this, oh, itna salary yahan Parthi mein kahan milta hai, Swami said. And that's when I just got that hint, to catch on and said, and I just quickly, held his hand and said, Swami, see, I am not going for the salary. You are the one who is literally pushing me. I literally told him, you want me to go. You are the one who forced me saying, Agya ka paran karo. I am not at all interested in this. Then he quickly covered up saying, no, it's very good. Jao. And then the date for joining was actually given as October 8th and 9th was the Vijayadashmi, and after 9th they had asked me to join. So Swami looked at it and then he said, you know what, November 8th and 9th is Akhand Bhajan, so you join after November 9th, after Akhand Bhajan. So I was like, yes, at least one more month I've got a way to stay back. And I immediately called that CEO and said, I've shown the offer letter, this is what Swami has said and everything. And he was super excited, right? So he got my visiting cards printed, he got my laptop ready, everything already. And he started sending me materials to read also, saying, you get ready. And I was like, I'm trying ways to hang on here. And it looks like Swami has already planned ways to kind of push me off. So in this, one more thing that Swami had mentioned to me when he said is, before you go, I will speak, Swami said. Before you go, I'll speak to you. So then I said, well, okay. So Swami has said he will speak to me. And I continued to, wait. So Vijayadashmi came and went, and after that, Akhand Bhajan was drawing closer, and I was getting a little bit fidgety, thinking, you know what, my heart is clearly telling me I should not be going, but Swami has told me to go after Akhand Bhajan. What do I do? And Akhand Bhajan came, and everybody knew that a few others were there in the Bhajan hall. The Bhajan group boys all knew that the next day is my last day. The last day comes, the last few hours of Akhand Bhajan comes, and I was sitting literally, so in Akhand Bhajan, Swami would actually sit in his wheelchair, not on the throne those days. And he would come closer. So literally, Swami's feet is almost on my lap. It's exactly that. And I was right under his nose and I was weeping internally, saying, you know what, I don't want to go and you are pushing me. And I had written a letter to Swami also saying, literally, this is what I had written to Swami saying, I am not at all interested to leave Parthi and leave your physical presence. You are the one who has asked me to go. If you are in my place, would you do this? Literally, I had asked him this and saying, this is a chance yearned for by so many. Do you think I should just let it go when I've got the opportunity? Right? And it was like a 4 or 5 line thing and just signed there. And I was holding the letter and Swami, I'm right below him and Swami is seeing everywhere and smiling and, he's enjoying the bhajan. We are singing in between. Even when we are singing, Swami is enjoying the bhajan, not exactly looking. And I was getting desperate. I've been asked to leave. And in fact, the company, they had even said, immediately after that, we've organized the car, you can come after the Akhand Bhajan. We organized the vehicle for you to travel. So I was feeling very guilty also on one hand, saying, what is this? Keeping them in waiting. And on one hand, I don't want to leave. It was all kinds of emotions. At about 5:45 or so, I think Swami took the letter from me, right? And he opened the letter and literally covered his face with that letter, kept on reading it for 15 minutes. It was a 4-line letter and I'm thinking, what really are you reading? It's a 4-line letter. It's a very simple answer. You're supposed to tell me saying stay back. That's all you're supposed to tell me. And the job is solved, right? And he reads the letter for 15 minutes. And then after that, he just looks at the watch and says, oh, time ho gaya, chalo, aarti lo. And then he takes aarti and then, goes out for the distribution of prasadam as part of Akhand Bhajan. And I'm like clueless. Well, he's taken my letter and now what am I supposed to do? Right? Clueless. So fortunately for me, again, in one of the previous interviews, Swami had mentioned to me, I remember that we had chanted Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu and so on. And in that interview, the moment we had chanted this, as we entered the room, Swami looked at me and said, who is your Guru? And I said, Krishna, you're my Guru. And he said a very important statement that I hold very close and that helped me make a lot of decisions. He said, no. He said, your real Guru is within. It's your conscience. Obey it always. My job is to lead you to it, he said. And even as a child, I had always felt, this inner voice is something which is very strong. There are times when I've disobeyed it and been solidly punished. There are times when I've followed it and been so easily, things have gone. And here, it was a huge test, right? Here is the physical avatar saying something and the inner voice saying, this is the chance of I mean, I don't know how many thousands of lifetimes, right? You're with the avatar and sitting right under his feet. And I knew the value of it because I had been coming as a devotee, sitting far. And I knew this is not something which is to be lost for a job, giving a few, few lakhs or crores. Completely not worth it, right? So, so I just, that evening when I just went back, I had to make a very tough call, essentially of saying, do I obey the physical Swami or do I obey this conscience which is super clear within? And I took this hard call saying, well, Swami, you told me to obey my conscience. I'm very clear I need to be in Parthi. And you also told me you will speak to me, which you have not done till now, fortunately, right? After that day in the interview, you have not given me an interview. So therefore, please forgive me, but I'm going to stay back. But I was also equally worried, thinking, how is Swami going to react to this? And I also immediately called the CEO and told him, sir, this is what happened. Swami said he would speak to me. He has not yet spoken to me. So once he speaks, I'll come. And then he was also side devotee. So he told me, you know what, Swami can always speak in multiple ways. It's not that he has to only speak to you in the interview. And I said, yes, you are right. But I think I'm at a plane where I'm not able to relate to that very clearly. So I will just wait for his physical guidance, sir. And I told him, please don't mind. I'm not doing this because I want to take some other job or there is anything on the job front. It is more like I believe I'm at a place which is the mission of my life, and I don't want to lose out because I lacked clarity at that point in time. He was understanding, though not fully convinced, and left it there at the time. Next morning, so it was a very, it was a very different day for me because when I came, I was very worried. Okay, how is Swami going to be? Internally, there was like clarity also, and at the same time, how is Swami going to see this, right? So Swami came very late that morning. I think he came around 10:45 or 11. He entered the bhajan hall slowly in the wheelchair, and I was sitting intentionally on the fifth or sixth row, somewhere far, hoping that I would avoid his immediate glare. And then, Swami looked directly at me and gave a beaming smile as soon as he entered, right? And to me, that was like a huge reconfirmation of the fact that even if there is something which the physical avatar apparently says, which is slightly contradicting, stick to that inner conscience because that is one which is always guiding you correctly. And after that, fortunately, Swami never brought up that job thing with me. He allowed me to stay on, interacted a few times, many times, and it was a huge
Before
thing.
I before I get into the charity, the trust, I want to hear quickly about the story of your grandmother because that is a very interesting thing which I think people should know. Uh, she was not into Bhagwan before, and then she got in, and her ending was very blessed. So I would like you to quickly share that.
Yeah, again, I think grandmother was a very unique lady, as in someone who was a very complete personality in many ways, had a lot of diverse interests. Right, she could keep herself engaged by herself. At the same time, she could talk to people of all ages. She loved movies. She loved to read Ramcharitmanas. She could read Advaita, and she could at the same time, share non-veg jokes. An amazing personality, right? So she would play with us, and at the same time, would love to attend all forms of satsang and all that. So very very interesting lady. And she always was again very devoted to Krishna, and someone who would from childhood was devoted to Krishna. She used to like Sai bhajans but had never been to Parthi, and as part of my convocation she said she would want to come. She had the urge, she came, and then between convocation and I think till February March she stayed on in Parthi. And during that time, so she used to have some different very strange experiences. For example, I remember once she said, you know what, today Swami came and looked directly at me, and I was there in Mandir that day for bhajans, and I know that Swami didn't even come for darshan. And I said, grandmother, you're getting a little old, looks like. She was a very healthy lady, completely in her senses. Huh? She will never say, never hallucinate and stuff like that. And I said, looks like you're, I mean, getting old, right? So we used to just tease her. And she said, no. And she went next day and asked her neighbor, didn't we all see Swami and this is what happened? And she said, no, Swami didn't come. And then she was like, oh, really? Maybe I'm getting old, right? So that kind of one or two such incidents. But she has never really had a physical eye contact with Swami, no interaction with Swami as such with a physical avatar. However, always, very devoted. And as I said, a person very healthy. She was 84 that year when she had darshan of Swami and eventually passed away too at 84. But hale and hearty. And to define hale and hearty, 5 days before she passed away, she actually cut a jackfruit and made jackfruit jam. Jackfruit is something which is very difficult to handle, right? For those of us who know, it's a very difficult vegetable come fruit to make. I mean, to make into anything. She's made jam and was asking us if you had and everything. That kind of a lady, very very. Dude, she would do exercise every day also, yoga and everything. So as it so happened, towards the last few days, she suddenly had something like a stomach pain, and we had taken her to the hospital, and they said her intestinal has twisted a bit and so on. So they advised surgery, and they said if you don't do the surgery in 24 hours, it might lead to, I think it's called goiter or something, where you'll have to cut the leg also. You'll have to amputate her leg to save her. So she was a very strong lady. She has three sons, one of whom is my father, and the other two are, my Bade Pitajis. So my father was there here, and her eldest son was at that time, just for a few days, he had gone abroad and so on. So they were saying, what to do, but she said very firmly, no surgery. And then I just came and asked her, do you think you want to do a surgery? And she said, no. Then I said, okay, we can do one thing. Shall I go and ask Swami? And then we can do that. She said, yeah, do that. If he says do surgery, we'll do it, she said. She was very convinced. By the way, she was also in deep pain at all this time. Huh? I mean, the stomach was really paining, twisted intestine. So this was happening, and against medical advice, we actually brought her home against medical advice. Right? It would have been something which would have been very painful in the context of things that happened, but we were very clear. We'll ask Swami and do what Swami says, and we brought her home in Bangalore at that time, and immediately I left for Parthi. But somehow there was this very clear thought in my mind that, we all need to be careful, because probably grandmother is, I just started feeling that maybe it's grandmother's last few moments. I told my family, just be careful with grandmother. And I left for Parthi. And grandmother and I had, by the way, even from childhood, we've had a lot of great discussions. I used to be her pet in many ways. And she used to ask me, will you cry when I die? And I used to say, why should I? You're changing your dress, right? So I was just reminding her that conversation and said, just be ready, right? I was just telling her. And she was also like, haha, jao, tum Swami ke paas jaake aao. And she was also just joking about it, playfully. But at the same time, I left for Parthi and told them, I've reached Parthi. So it was 11 o'clock. By the time I reached Parthi, there was this thing as if, she's going to live only a few moments. In that evening, I had a letter in my hand in Parthi, waiting to ask Swami, saying, Swami, what should we do? I mean, with respect to the surgery. But again, Swami was just not looking at me. And during that bhajan, I was just feeling as if, there's this internal feeling as if grandmother is putting flowers at Swami's feet and just getting closer and closer to him, and eventually just entered him. I didn't understand. And Swami went outside the bhajan hall after Aarti. Physically, he goes out after the Aarti. And just when he's entering the car, he calls me at last. And then I quickly go and say, Swami, grandmother, this. And he's not, and Swami is not listening to what I'm saying. He's saying, when are you going for a job? This is before that job part I just spoke of. I was like, Swami, grandmother is literally, in the hospital. I mean, she's not well. We need to do this surgery. What should we do? And Swami just said, you'll come tomorrow and I will speak to you. I'll give an interview tomorrow. So on one hand, I was super happy. We've never had an interview before this, by the way. So that was the first time Swami was saying, I'll give you an interview. I was super happy, but I didn't get an answer on this part. So Swami just gave one Vibhuti packet, and then I went immediately after Darshan. I called home and said, what? Swami has said, I'll give you an interview. And meanwhile, from there, they give me news saying, what? Grandmother just passed away 2 hours back. So we had to make a very tough call, right? So it was her, by the way, her last few words when she had passed away there were, Sai Ram, Sai Krishna, Aham Brahmasmi. Those were the last few words with which she passed away, is what my parents and my sister told me. And we had to make a tough call now. On one hand, grandmother's dead body is right there. We have to do the things needed. And we were all very close to her. Everybody very close. There was obviously sadness. There's no doubting that. But she was, again, as I said, a very strong lady. So she had also inculcated that in others around. In fact, just before dying, she had even asked others, have you all eaten and all that, to that level of concern, reminding us that, this is jackfruit jam also has that also, everything. So she had passed away with these last few words, and here in Parthi, Swami has called for an interview. So then, we quickly as a family just decided that, see, what is important now is what Swami has said. So we decided that we would carry her body from Bangalore to Puttaparthi, and we brought it to the morgue in the super specialty hospital, and her body was placed there. And next morning, between her death and funeral, with her body in the morgue, we all presented ourselves in Parthi waiting for an interview. And that day, again, as luck would have it, there was a fair bit of drama, which I will not cover here. A fair bit of drama to a point where, I was not, though I was asked to sit in Mandir, inside the bhajan hall, I was not sitting there, I was asked to sit outside. Something happened. And then eventually, Swami came late at about 11. I was not even in Swami's sight, and Swami sent word and asked me to come, and he called. And then he asked, saying, why didn't you sit inside? And I said, Swami, something happened. This is what happened. I was asked to be here. And then Swami said, okay, I will speak to you, Swami said. Okay, I'll speak you it. And then Swami went out, took a round in his car, came back at 11:15, and then he came. As soon as he came back, he called and said, "Come for interview now." And that's how that interview, first interview that we had happened. This was on the 12th of June, 2008, and
As
this
a
interview,
family,
as a family, and this interview is on 11th of June evening. My grandmother had passed at 3:58 p.m. This interview happened between the death and funeral of my grandmother. So normally, from childhood, we've heard that, a time you are supposed to not visit temples, not meet great personages immediately after death. And I used to always think that doesn't make sense, right? You actually want to meet saints, you want to go to the temple of God and, probably cry your heart out and, be there in this most difficult time. And I used to think if God is not available at that time, then what's the use of God at all? That used to be my thought, even as a child, as a 5-year-old. Because they would say, Abhi temple mat jao 10 din ke liye. And I was like, why? This is the time I have to go to the temple actually. Right? So Swami, how he completely sort of proved that thing so beautifully. He called us for an interview between grandmother's death and funeral, and literally hugged my father and spoke very closely and like literally as a mother. I mean, to him and filling that place. And then he made some statements which were so heartening for us. He said, "Before grandmother died, I spoke to her in the mind." And then he said, "Very good girl." He said, "Very good girl for grandmother. Good devotion. Very peaceful death. Very happy. She merged in me." Swami said all these words one after the other. Right? So the
beautiful.
ultimate certificate that one can get. I mean, grandmother got that. And this is for a lady who has seen Swami only 6 months back for the first time physically, whom Swami has never spoken to physically, whom Swami has never had an eye contact with physically. And Swami said, "She merged in me." And he also said that, sing my arti while doing her funeral. That's how the funeral actually happened. He gave vibhuti and said, "Put this vibhuti on the pyre." And then he also said, "Get her ash to me after 3 days. Bring the remains of that body after 3 days." Right? And then, as my monkey mind would have it, right? So I was also very free, and I think this monkey mind. So I said, "Swami, 3 days means 3 human days, right?" I just asked him because you don't know which days he's serving of. And Swami said, "Yes." And then I just confirmed, "Swami, 72 human hours." And just mark Swami's words. Huh? Swami said, "Yes, I will call you after 72 human hours." This is what Swami said. We came back very happily. This is between death and funeral. We came out in the afternoon, quickly organized whatever we could at Parthi, got the funeral done. Right? We were all delighted. See, she has already merged in Swami. Now, what else could you ask for? This is the ultimate. We did the funeral, and after funeral, you're supposed to have a bath and quickly go for, I mean, do other things, right? We finished the funeral in Chitravati River on the banks there, and I start hearing the Vedam. So I rushed back without a bath, straight to Mandir with that in that day. And I go to the back of the bhajan hall. Swami is coming, and then he asked me, "How did the funeral go?" Immediately, Swami asks also, "How did it go?" I said, "Good, Swami." I take his Pada Namaskar and then go and sit for bhajan. Right? So, not even followed the basic PA. I think in COVID times, people will be wondering what the hell was this guy doing, right? So probably there are disastrous people like this who led to it. But anyway, I mean, it was out of ignorance, Allah or whatever. That's what it led to. And at that time, 3 days later, we were waiting for Swami to call. So this was 12th of June. 15th of June came and went, and Swami didn't call. And I was like, "Swami, you said you'll call us, right? I've always taken your word super seriously. What is this?" 16th of June, it was 2008, and in the evening, I remember that we were just sitting there, and Swami suddenly said, "Come for interview," and he called me and my parents. That was the one where we entered chanting Guru Brahma. And my very first, after Swami said, "Your conscience is your guru," my immediate question was, "Swami, you said you will call us, in 3 human days, 72 human hours." I said 72 human hours. And Swami said, "Hey, I told you I will call you after 72 human hours. I have called you between the 72nd and the 96th human hour," Swami said. And it was another beautiful example of how not a single word of Swami, the word after, was not simply said, right? And not a single word of Swami is simply uttered, right? So people think, "अरे Swami ने ऐसा ही बोला होगा." Swami ऐसा ही कुछ भी नहीं बोलते हैं. There is nothing that he says which is simply said. Every word of his is absolutely laden with truth. And again, this was one more such instance where he proved it so accurately, saying, to the letter, I fulfill my word. And then he asked for the ash. I had, by the way, forgot. I used to carry the ash for the first 2 days in a big dabba. People were wondering what this is. Third day, I took it in a small dabba in my pocket. And it was in my pocket and I forgot about it during the interview, because when Swami is in front, you're in a different mode, right? And then he asked me, hey, where is the ash? And we were looking, then I said, yes, it's here, Swami. He asked for it, put his hand in, blessed it, and then said, dip all the ashes in Kaveri river. Swami said, go to Kaveri and dip it. So he took such personal attention and care. And I'm not trying to say that, this is because grandmother was a great soul. Of course, she has been. It's been validated by what he said. But more going to show how Swami has a one-to-one connect with every single person, with people, whom he has never physically interacted with, right? This is a lady he's never interacted with. She has never really met him until 84 years of her life.
Perfect. Karthik, just keeping the time check, I just wanted to move into the story of your, the real adventure of your life, which was your charity, how it started. So I believe Bhagavan gave you a kind of a dream in 2008, I suppose, when he said,
Yes.
go and start your children home. And then from 2008 to 11, what happened? And just give us a snapshot of it now.
Yeah, so it started off with a small dream into not exactly a dream. I was kind of awake, and it was more like just hearing Swami's voice saying, start a children's home. And this was on 30th January 2008. In fact, before grandmother passed away, actually. So we're kind of moving back and forth in time. But this is what happened. And I've always taken Swami seriously, whether in dream or whatever. And I just woke up and said, okay, fine. I mean, Swami said it. But that morning when I went for the Mandir bhajans, just when I was finishing my bhajan, again, Swami called and said, hey, when are you starting the children's home? Swami said. And I was completely not prepared, right? 2 hours back, he said something when I was in a semi-conscious state. And here he is in the wakeful state, asking the same thing physically in the mandir, in the bhajan hall. And I just said, Swami Karta, and just kind of wriggled out of it. I didn't know what to say, right? So that was Jan 2008. And then in between June and August, he gave a series of interviews where he interacted. But very specifically on 18th of August 2008, Swami called us for an interview as a family, and again said, gave very clear outlines and instructions saying how to start a children's home. He named it as Sai Krushna Mandir. He also said, name it as Sai Krushna Mandir. He said Krishna should be spelled with a U, it's not I. Krishna is always U, Krushna Mandir. And then he said, he gave the seed funding for the same. He said, set up Sai Krushna Charitable Trust, gave the seed funding for that. He also, told us how to construct the children's home, which kind of children to take. He said, don't mix boys and girls in the children's home. Times are not good, so keep it as a boys' home for underprivileged boys, and how to take them. And he also very clearly took my hand and said, he took my hand and promised and said that I will come to Sai Krishna Mandir. And again, as my monkey mind would have it, so, I was saying that, I've read in the Satcharita that, Shirdi Baba used to come in different forms and people wouldn't recognize. So it quickly struck my mind and I said, see, Swami, in which form will you come? Because we should be able to recognize you. If you come as a cat or a snake or something, we may not be able to. And then he just smiled and said, again took hand and said, I will come there physically in this Satya Sai form. It is on my way to Bangalore and I will come there by car. Swami was absolutely categorical. And I remember saying, Swami, can we do it in Jamshedpur? He said, no, do it in Bangalore. I will come there. And then he said, do you have land in Bangalore? Swami asked, because he wanted us to buy the land, then construct the children's home and so on. And I said, Swami, we have nothing in Bangalore. We have no connects. We don't even know the people, the Sai Samiti, nothing in Bangalore. He said, doesn't matter. You do it in Bangalore. And we were like, kaise? Right? And then we were like, and then we were also not very sure of our capabilities. Yes, my parents had been coming as Sevadals and all. But then Swami said that, you just do it. And we asked him saying, Swami, do you think we have the ability or the nobility to do it? Are you sure? I mean, let this not be one of the blunders of your life, right? Right? Literally. And then Swami, so Swami, I literally asked him saying, are you sure we have either the nobility or the ability? We don't think yet. I don't know how you are so confident of it. Right? And he said, you just be there and I will do everything. You just be there in the village, Swami said. I will do everything. And today, when we look back at that, right, I think every single statement he said is absolutely true in terms of saying that, we've seen how his hand has been at work, achieving every single thing. I mean, that itself would probably take another couple of hours to talk about each of those things which have been happening subsequently. Much later, he also blessed us to take over a completely free rural school that happened somewhere in early 2011. Swami asked us to take over that. And how in every aspect, his presence has been felt, his direct guidance has been witnessed. So I can only say that all of us who've been part of this project at Sai Krishna Charitable Trust feel very fortunate and blessed, because I would say we've been first-hand witnesses to his glory unfolding. Many people come and tell us, congrats, you've done so much. We just laugh internally and say, really? I mean, we didn't even know the language, didn't even know the people, didn't have the wherewithal, didn't know the resources. And you think we've done it? I mean, nothing could be farther from truth. So the only thing that we say, yes, we have been very fortunate first-hand witnesses who've seen it unfolding, literally petal by petal, and he's been doing it. Of course, he's made us go through a roller coaster ride multiple times, right? And I think all that is with a great intent, because I think for him, projects are only means of making all of us grow and evolve and learn. You think he needs any of us to run a school or a children's home? That's a joke, right? But it's only an opportunity where we get to evolve. For
I
someone
believe
who's,
in
yeah.
2010, you had applied for a government land and you got it also. And then you went to Bhagwan, and I believe he said to you, don't worry, don't bother.
Yeah, so when Swami had said apply for land first, we were totally new to Bangalore, so we didn't know how to do it. We've heard that there is a lot of land mafia and different malpractices in revenue, land, and so on. So we were very clear that we'll go to something which is completely right. So we went to the government and said we want a piece of land, very naively, right? We went and approached someone whom we knew, and at that point in time, we happened to meet a lot of interesting people. So I remember we also happened to meet one deputy commissioner who said, "You know what? I can get you this land if you can get me an interview with Swami." I was like, and I was like, you know what? If I could get you an interview with Swami, I wouldn't need any extent of land. There's nobody who can do that, right? So we happened to meet a lot of these interesting people. We were very, very clear, super clear that come what may, we're not going to give 1 rupee as a bribe, even if it means that they give us the entire universe to construct this. So that stance led us to a lot of difficulties. I would typically spend time waiting and singing mandir bhajans in Parthi, and going for a few days, knocking doors and just trying to see how much, who could irritate the other more, whether the government officers could irritate me more or I could irritate them more by my presence. And after 2 years of this, penance, I would say the government finally, we happened to meet the right people who helped us out. They visited Parthi, they were impressed, they were convinced of our cause. It was one of the under secretaries there, and she managed to get us access to the right kind of land, I would say, in a way. Get us access to someone who could help us, and we happened to get 2 acres of land sanctioned by the government. But when I went and saw that land, I was totally disheartened. It was almost like a conical hilltop, and on that conical hilltop, which is 5 kilometers away from any civilization, no power, no water, no roads, we were very clear that we are looking for land which has road access, because Swami said he will come to Bangalore by car. For a car to come, there should be a road. We were super clear on that. And I was like, oh God, this is like really horrible. What do we do here? We have to go to the government for everything now. And dealing with the government is certainly not easy. So we were just wondering what to do. But anyway, since it was a letter from the government, I took that letter and was holding it. And I saw in Mandir, in Parthi, in Kulwant Hall. And Swami came that morning. I remember he was probably about 10, 12 feet away. And from there itself, he looked at me, right? I've got a folded letter, nothing showing it's the government, just got a letter. Swami looks at me and says, no need for the government, I will give the land. Right? And my
I
first
love this
thought was,
part.
my first reaction was certainly not, with so much of happiness. It was certainly with, what the hell, Swami? You could have told this 2 years back, right? You would have been saved from all the struggle of haggling with these useless government officers. But at the same time, I was happy, yes, that, you know what? Now the problem of securing land is no longer ours. It's on Swami's head. Let him take care of it. He said he will give land. We just have to relax. But we knew that this was not the land. And then this happened in October 2010. And then a few months later, we happened to, seemed completely unconnected, right? So it seemed unconnected at that point in time. We happened to meet people who were running a free school. They were getting old and they wanted to hand over that free school to us. And they were wanting to see if we would be willing to take it. But we were not at all keen. We were like, you know what? Swami told us to start a children's home 2 years back. and we haven't even got the land for that. Where is the question of taking up another project? So basically, we had proven to ourselves that we were neither able nor noble. That's the way we looked at it, right? And we were feeling guilty about it, thinking, Swami, how do we do anything about this? But they were like, you know what? Just come and see the school, and then we can decide. So we came, saw the school. Yes, it served a really rural crowd, very needy set of children. So it seemed like, yes, it's a good school, but we were very clear that we don't want to take up this school right now. But the founders of that school said, see, this is also again a completely free rural school. Do one thing. They came to a common ground. They said, you go and ask Swami and see what Swami says, and whatever Swami says is fine. I said, yeah, that sounds like the right thing to do. So I wrote a letter to Swami. It was, I think, the 10th of January 2011. It was a day before the sports meet. And as a waiting boy, I was sitting somewhere, probably in the 15th or 18th row, somewhere behind all the students who were trying to talk about the next day's sports meet and all. And Swami called from somewhere. They're signaling, no, not this one, next. He's called and called me, took the letter. He read the letter and then took the letter and said, very good school, take it up. And again repeated, I will come there physically as Satya Sai. And he also gave Vibhuti and Padanamaskar. So that's how the school also came into the ambit. And it seemed like completely unconnected. This happened in Jan 2011. And then we were planning to formally, now that Swami had given permission, we went to the school again, informed them that, okay, Swami has given permission. Maybe your prayers are answered and we don't know how we're going to do it. But well, Swami has said do it. So we have to now try it. And we told them that when the academic year gets over, we'll formally take over the management of the school from grades 1 to 7, which is what they were running. That school also had another 8, 9, 10, which was being run by another management. So there was a lot of confusion in that sense. Two managements, how are we going to do things? We didn't know. And in between this, right, again, Swami chose the opportune moment, it looks like, as I look back and see, to basically have this Mahasamadhi, right? So it was like, oh God. I mean, on one hand, of course, fortunately, I wasn't too hit by it for different reasons, because I knew that he had said he will come physically as Satya Sai. I still know, I don't believe, I still know that it's going to happen, right? How he does it is his prerogative, none of my thinking involved there. But I was thinking from the perspective of, oh God, what do we do? Because these people are hearing all kinds of different stuff on the media about Swami, right? But how do we do it? But we knew that, well, this is a project where Swami has given the seed funding of 1,000 rupees. The prasadam is there. So everything is going to happen with his will. And we just started applying our intelligence and cleverness, saying, you know what? We will do this way, right? We will take Swami in the form of the 5 human values, Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, Ahimsa. We will not really take his personality in front right now as Satya Sai. That we'll do later. So we went with all our intelligence, thinking this is what we're going to do. And we went to that school on the 29th of May for a formal takeover function. And we greeted the children there as we entered, saying Namaste, right? Namaste is the Indian way of greeting. And they were replying saying Sai Ram. And we felt so ashamed, right? it was just so shameful for us at that point, I remember. And then the founders of the school said, you know what, just come with us. And they took us to a tree there. And they said, this is the village temple tree. And there we found some small tiny tots of maybe grade 1 and 2 who were offering some incense. And we were very curious, what are they doing? Tiny tots offering incense. We went there and they showed us a small pocket-sized photo of Swami that we had given them when we visited the school earlier. And they said, Sai Baba is our new village deity. We are offering him incense. You also join us, they said.
So
right.
beautiful.
So we went with all our cleverness, thinking we will take Swami's personality later on. We'll go with the human values. And here was Swami waiting there to welcome us, saying, you think you are bringing me here? Well, I'm already waiting there ahead of you, trying to see, what. and that was just the beginning of this whole journey, right? Where exactly as he said, you just be there and I will do things, right? And we've seen that starting that day. We've seen that innumerable number of times, whether it was with the water coming from the borewell, the construction of a building where we didn't even have 10% of funds to start with. It got done in 11 months without soliciting funds, right? We were very clear, we will not solicit. We set some very strict principles saying no soliciting funds, no bribery with the government, dealing very honestly, doing whatever Swami has said, all of that, right? So we tried and made things tough for Swami, and Swami succeeded every time saying, you think you're taking me there, you set boundaries and let's see, it doesn't matter. Of course, he made us go through this, as I said, this roller coaster ride, but I think every rose plant has thorns meaningfully, because that's how you also learn, you also evolve. Today we're at a point where we're able to say that when we look back and say, my God, did all this really happen? I mean, how did it happen? And not just that, we've been able to prove to ourselves that things can be done through satya, through dharma. Satya and dharma work. You don't need to pay a bribe to get things to the government. Yes, things will get delayed. You will be absolutely put under the road roller, so to say. But if you can hold on to it, miraculously things do happen. And when you're on his work, why should you bother, right? At the end of the day, I mean, we are very clear today that if at all we have to choose between satya and seva, we will choose satya, because as he said, it's his work, it's his job to get it done. All that we need to do is stick to what he has taught us, and he takes care of the rest.
So you had originally started for a children home, but you got a school now. So how did you diversify into children home too?
Beautiful. So again, on that 29th of May, what happened was, the school was formally taken over, and then these founders took us just to the adjacent land, and they said, "See, we are very happy that Swami responded to our prayer. We wanted the school to be continued to run free." They were not really Sai devotees, by the way, just good people who had high regard for Swami. Let me tell you, the two
Beautiful.
founders by name Mr. Balu and Mr. Shiv Kumar. And it's amazing that there are such amazing people across the globe, right? Who do his work in such a silent way and are never heard of. And they said, we've been praying that it should continue to run free for rural kids and so on. They're happy that Swami blessed this, through this trust. Now, what we would like to do as an offering of gratitude, we know that Swami asked you to start a children's home, not a school. So we bought this land right next to the school, and we'd like to donate it to the trust. And that's how the children's home came right adjacent to the school. And today both are integrated in such a way that some of the classes of school happen in the children's home. The children studying there go to the same school. I mean, it's like completely one entity, right? In a sense, there is a children's home physically, there is a school physically, but it's kind of bhajans for the school kids happens here, video shows happen in the children's home, so it's all integrated together.
Let me take you through a little pictorial journey, and you can explain to the people. I think that way people will get a little bit more idea. So this, I believe, was your starting of
Yeah.
construction of your children home.
Correct. This is the starting of the construction. Let me tell you that, we were told that the architects who helped us with this Sai devotees, they said, we'll do the drawings free for you. That'll be good. But they advised us strongly saying, don't even start the construction of this home until you have 50% of the funds. And let me tell you that when we started off, we didn't even have 10% of the funds needed. But we had started to see Swami's hand at play so strongly that we said, you know what? It's his project. It's his job. He's given the seed funding. We don't know how things will happen, but we just started off, and well, in 11 months it got completed. Yes, this is the picture of the board on the school, which is a completely free school. It continues to run completely free. Not a penny is charged for textbooks, for notebooks, for education, for midday meal. And 300 children study in that school now. It's an English medium school. It was a Kannada medium school when we took over then. And today this English medium school of first generation schoolgoers has a few national prize winners in different areas. These people do not have access to Google Meet and Zoom to be able to pursue education in this COVID time, but thanks to all our teachers and so many volunteers, many of whom are Satya Sai alumni of Swami's University, all working weekend on weekend. We have a lot of activity on Saturdays and Sundays. In fact, in a few minutes from now, we have a call known as a reflections call to look at the seva activity for the day. People have been qualifying videos, we've made close to 2,500 videos, not just for our school kids, but have uploaded it on YouTube as a free open resource portal for any rural child anywhere. And all of this has been possible through so many remarkable, amazing people through whom Swami is working. So as we look back at this, it's just super clear for us to say that we've done this, as I said, would be the most foolhardy thing to say. It's just so clear that he achieves his work, and just gives us an opportunity to say, what, he tells us you did it, and hence gives us some credit bonus points. It's just a way of distributing bonus points for nothing we've done.
So this is your whole family there right now, who come and volunteer there and
so this is actually taken in the early years, many alumni and teachers from the early years. But yes, this is how the school looks now. We have a ground floor and a first floor, and today we are there from UKG to 9. Next year the 10th grade will also come. Also, that temple you see at the right far end, it's a Ganesha temple. There's a story of its own that it has in terms of how Ganesha came, how the temple came. not really without even wanting it. In fact, I remember saying, see, Ganesha's temple will have to wait. First, the children's home has to come up. I remember making this statement, and the next day, things got organized where the Ganesha temple literally, the funding for that also came in. So it's all been happening with His grace. A lot of alumni are involved, people across batches, a lot of Sai devotees who have all been, spending their time and trying to say how they can make a difference. And today, this is a Satya Sai alumni run school. We've also been very active during COVID. So this is a picture from the COVID relief, right, towards migrants. We started off saying, how can we enable these migrants who are walking all the way from Bangalore to far off? It's going to take them 30 days if they walk. So we've been trying to sort of enable their work. We've been having healthcare. So this is the picture you see here is of the Sai Krishna Arogya Dham, which is a primary healthcare center, which was also set up. So I was also blessed to be married a few years later and have a wife who also comes with a very similar mindset. It's a huge blessing where my wife, Dr. Purnima, runs this free primary healthcare center. She used to also volunteer at Swami's Super Speciality Hospital in Whitefield. And yeah, I think again, as part of COVID, right, a lot of relief work happening in terms of working closely with government hospitals, setting up the first free
So you have
plasma
a
bank.
school bus also now? You have a school bus also?
We don't have a school bus. This is actually as part of the medical camp, which which some of the other hospitals they brought their buses and conducted it in this village at Sai Krishna Arogya Dham. Yeah.
So in the
Again,
same campus, you have the Sai Arogya Dham, you have children home, and you have the school.
so that's the nice part of it. It's not exactly one campus, but in three parts of the village. It's all
Okay.
like all within 150-meter radius kind of a
So
thing. We
in
have
the
all
same.
three, and today in the same place. Yeah. So that's the picture of my mother, who's completely involved with the school. But in this village called Hosadoddi now, Swami's birthday is celebrated like a grand village festival. People putting rangolis outside their homes and so on. These are the 8 boys with whom me and my wife and my parents are privileged to live. This is their home where we live actually, right? So we all live together as one big family. These are boys who unfortunately lost their parents early. Some of them have very traumatic backgrounds. The one you see in the rightmost, the tall boy, is someone who's seen his mother hanging from a tree at the age of 3, and then today he's a national prize winner and also works in the fields and does a lot of things when he goes back home to be with his grandparents. So every child here has their own difficult story, but it's just so remarkable that we've been blessed to be part of their childhood and hopefully a little more into their future too.
Beautiful.
This is a school visit to Puttaparthi as part of Sri Satya Sai Vidya Vahini, right? Where they invited our students, and again, the way the children have seen Puttaparthi, I think I myself as a student have never seen. Swami organized it in such a way where our school kids got to lead Mandir Bhajans. So students of 7th standard got to lead Mandir Bhajans on the 1st of December 2018, and only 2 schools all over India qualified. One of them was our school, and I told the students of our school, who were 2 of them who were from the 7th grade, I said, you know what? Even people like Ravi Kumar sir and Ashwat Narayan, who are like absolutely tremendous singers, have led Mandir Bhajans in probably 8th or 9th or 11th. And here you've been blessed to lead Mandir Bhajans at the 7th standard. So I
So
think Swami's grace on them has been
really,
remarkable.
really
Yeah,
a
this is a
privilege.
this is a picture from our marriage in Parthi. It happened in the Patha Mandapam actually. So this is from our wedding where these were the 4 kids. So I was fortunate to have 4 kids even before marriage, as I remarked, right? So yeah. So
So these are
these
the
are
that your children
yeah,
home
the
folk.
kids yes, they live with us. In fact, the rightmost is that boy I just spoke of,
Okay,
Chandan.
okay.
And
They've
then
grown up now. They have grown
yeah,
up now.
they've grown up now. Yeah.
Which year did you get married?
So this was also in 2013. 2013 was the year that the children's home was founded, and a few months later, yeah. So this is a more recent pic, probably from a couple of years back. This is during Deepavali, and all of them were dressed up, and we just took a nice pic with them right outside the children's home. Yeah, so one of the things that's been happening is our school kids also preparing some wonderful exhibitions where many students from other schools have now started coming, and they come and these kids who are from a rural background explain about these exhibits to these other school children from international schools. In fact, our school has been winning the best school trophy in some events like public speaking and craft and art and maths quiz and so on, competing against CBSE and paid other schools. And it's remarkable because these kids really don't have an opportunity at home when they go back, they can't even interact in English. But the way they speak now, it's all just Swami's bounteous grace on them.
So the school is a co-ed school, and the
Yes,
children home is only for boys right now.
that's right. That's right. Yes.
Okay, good.
And in the school, we've got something like a 60% girls, 40% boys, approximately. It's almost closely matched. We also do some very interesting things like a summer camp. So here you see all of them having done t-shirt painting, where they painted Krishna, Buddha, a lot of things on that t-shirt. All of them has been done by the kids.
Oh, so
With the
nice. That's
Yeah.
nice. That's very
Yeah, so
lovely.
these are all free summer camps. This is a pre-primary room. All the painting you see there, right? The alphabets painted on the wall, the characters painted on the walls, have all been done by a lot of volunteers together. Purnima is also a good artist. My wife, she, along with many of them. Of course, we do have yoga regularly at school. This was taken on International Yoga Day, but then Surya Namaskar is an integral part of the curriculum. So we try and apply the learning we did have at Parthi to some extent at least. Yeah, this is from the Bhumi Puja. So, yeah, I mean, the land itself, right, when we got it. Yeah, some pictures as part of the distribution function. The person you see there is my dad. I'm really privileged to have such parents who've been so closely associated and helping out as the backbone of all that's happening by way of seva. So, person on the right, yeah.
Hmm. Oh, sorry.
So I think, I think a lot of things have obviously fallen in place. This is again one of my Parthi classmates. They've been part of, we do Gram Seva in the village as part of Swami's birthday. So this is part of the Gram Seva, just as we do it in Parthi, right? Going home to home, distributing Swami's prasadam of either sari dhoti or an emergency light or something of use to the entire family. So this
So
year it
nice.
was some vessels that
And
was
when do
given.
you do that? When do you do that?
This is as part of Swami's birthday. We do
Okay.
it on the weekend following November 23rd, because on 23rd November we believe quite a few people may go to Parthi also. So on the
Correct.
weekend following 23rd we do that. This is
That's
again as part of COVID care, right? So we, as I told you, we were all out in the open for maybe 75 days in the peak of COVID, and it's remarkable that not a single person, not a single volunteer, 250 of them on the field, not a single person fell sick, right? We were interacting with lakhs of people in that period and enabling hospitals with some work, enabling the police and so on. This is all from that COVID care time. A lot of our volunteers, brothers like, Venkat Desikan brother, Manoj Gadi, Prakash Srinivasan, Satyanarayan Raju, just to name a few of them, right? So many of them so actively involved, running right up front. Bhupal, Anand, there's many of
what
them
is
getting involved.
what is
So this,
this?
this by the way is a picture from this morning actually, where to all our students, thanks to the support of so many volunteers, they've all got a digital tablet with which they can continue their education remotely. And this again is something remarkable because this is not an international school which is distributing tablets. This is a free rural school of first generation schoolgoers who are all learning how to apply learning, who are learning through tablets, who are all being tested with quizzes which are being taken online and offline. And this is from just this morning. This is something which has happened
Who,
as recent as
who
this
else
morning.
donated? How you got donated these tablets?
So this is something which many of our Satyasai alumni got together and said we want to support these children. We've also been
Oh,
speaking to them regularly. We have something known as the virtual parent stream, where some of our brothers like Tirumal and Bhupal and all of them across batches, they connect every day. So every volunteer talks to one student and encourages them to grow up in life and do things differently, and essentially trying to motivate them both academically and in other perspectives. So this large team of Satyasai alumni, we have maybe about 100, 200 alumni who've got involved with the school in the last year or so, all got together and have sort of facilitated some of this.
uh, it's very impressive, Vinod. But I'm sure people listening also will have this curious question. You very categorically explain that we do not solicit funds, and obviously we do not, take any money from that way. How do you raise funds? How did you manage this construction and paying salaries? It's a lot of expense.
Right, sir.
If you don't mind,
So,
how do you, like, just for an idea, how this money comes in?
right. So, in fact, I remember in the interview on 18th August 2008, in fact, this was something that Swami himself said. He said, when good work happens, and he specifically said, especially he said, when good work happens in India, he said, money just comes like this. Swami showed like rain falling. He just said that. right? So he also said, I am there and don't worry, everything will be taken care of. And we have seen his words being fulfilled. So we have not solicited fund, and we've tried to keep to that standard. But yes, one thing that we do is we let people know that good work is happening, and we've tried to make it a point that before somebody can contribute money, we say contribute your time, get involved in the seva, because your contribution of time is in completely more invaluable compared to just a contribution of money, right? You can always just throw some money and say, you know what, I've lessened my guilt. But we don't allow people to lower their guilt so easily. We say, you know what, you're sitting there. We've enabled volunteering to a point where you can sit remotely in Seattle or in Singapore or in Tokyo, and you can actually contribute to a rural child to learn. Why don't you just come for a Saturday morning call? We'll enable you to get on that 1 hour call, make the difference. And as people get involved, they feel more interested to not just be involved with the future of the child, through engagement, but they say, can we do something monetarily also? And then they're no longer contributing to some cause. They're then getting involved in their own cause. And that makes all the difference. You're no longer contributing to a charity. You are involved as a volunteer trying to make a difference to your child. And then it's no longer charity.
You said you provide your children in school, which is around 300 plus now, uh, food also.
Yeah.
Who cooks that?
So
And
this
where
is
is
Yeah, so there are two parts to the midday meal that is provided. One is, the standard meal that comes from Akshay Patra Foundation, which is run by ISKCON, I believe, right? So that,
yeah.
however, is something that we have to pay for because we are a private school. We are not a government school. We don't get any form of aid from the government whatsoever. So being a private school, we have to pay for that. And it's at the rate of, say, 20 rupees per plate per child per day, right? So that is again something where people have come and said, this is something good to have. In fact, it was even instituted thanks to the earlier founders themselves, where there are people who come and contribute to this cause. But we also said that the food, while it's pretty good, it would be good to supplement it with additional vegetables. And we started doing this, and this has been happening through the support of another Sai devotee who runs what's known as Sai Annalakshmi Foundation. And he came to the school, he was very impressed and said, the children can be made even more intelligent if they get regular nutrient supply from vegetables. So these children who would never eat vegetables early on, they would waste them. We ensured they couldn't waste them to a point now where they want the vegetables. So they're like, oh, today there's no vegetable, I want that. They like different vegetables today. So in the villages, though they grow vegetables, unfortunately quite often they don't necessarily eat them. And now we've brought them to a point where vegetable has become an important integral part of the school midday meal. So this vegetable is cooked right in the children's home, and then it's taken to the school for all the 300 kids.
You know what I would like to highlight that, Bhagwan, I always say that, Bhagwan has touched every aspect of our life, be it personal, be it children problem, be it adult problem, be it corporate, be it professional. He has not left anything untouched. And when some people ask me, like, has Swami given answers to everything? I say he may not have given a literal answer to a question, but he has given us a template to follow. And if you catch that template, you can find every answer. And I find, Karthik, in your presentation, that one template is being reflected in a way how to run a charity, how to run a school, how to, you know, take care of children, start a school and a home. And then Arogya, what he's telling is actually a mini hospital. It is like a, first
Primary
aid,
healthcare center. Yeah.
primary healthcare
Primary dental
center.
hospital.
So imagine the whole template and so beautifully presented. I'm sure Bhagavan, it's his doing. And he, as you rightly said, he makes you feel proud that it has happened through you. But it is a joy to watch, and it's a huge learning for all of us who are watching. How do you feel it now? What is your future plan, if I may ask you?
So
Do you have any?
exactly. I was just coming to that, right? So in fact, I think if you've noticed, I think one thing we've seen with Swami, right, with all the management that we learn and all the MBA, which is good to put structures into place eventually. I think Swami has always stressed on responsiveness, which may be even unstructured at times, which is, well, here is a need, and Swami would jump in. Where are the resources? Those are the things that Swami cared last about. You know what? There is a need. Let me enter into the pool, and there is a drowning person. Now you're not going to say, where is the balloon? Let me, even if I don't know swimming, he's drowning. Let me try and do something as quickly as possible, right? And invariably, you'll find that help comes in different forms. So I think one thing we've learned over the years is that it's our job to plan. It's equally well our job to know that our plans may not get fulfilled because Swami has other plans. So we've learned to accept that. So yes, we do try and make some plans saying, okay, you know what, as an organization, we're supposed to try some of these things, but finally, not all of these may succeed. Some of these may succeed. Some of these may go in another way. But I think at the end of the day, there's tremendous learning in all, no matter what we do. And I've definitely learned that by sticking to the core principles, right? Like Satya Dharma, for example, there is one thing which is guaranteed, which is Swami's support, and which automatically means, like they say, right, where there is Krishna, there is victory. So I know that it will all lead towards that. I mean, it doesn't matter what that plan really is in our minds.
Yatra yogi Krishna, yatra
Yeah.
partho dhanudhara. So
Huh, I
Karthik
think
is
Par-
present.
I think Partha Dhanuta is probably not necessarily needed at all, because I think Yogeshwara Krishna is enough actually.
You know,
He just wants to give credit to somebody. That's the point. And here I should be very, very open and frank, right? It is, unfortunately, sometimes I come and speak, and people think that it's a one person effort. That's completely wrong, right? I mean, I may just happen to represent a few thousands of people who are involved in this project, a few hundreds of alumni who are so actively involved. And I think it is it's just Swami working through each and every one of those individuals. Vinod Kartik is probably one of those insignificant small instruments whom Swami has given a chance, and with or without whom this institution would run equally well. I'm very sure about that. But I think it's just that opportunity where all of us get a part and chance to get involved. And I just feel blessed that we get an opportunity to sanctify our lives that way. That's it.
perfect. I think we have crossed the time today, but it was worth the cross. And I can only be grateful to Bhagwan for giving us this beautiful opportunities to listen to his glory and how he has guided and beautifully done. So Karthik, thank you so much for your time, and I hope I can bring you again sometimes to really go into the further details about some functionality part of it. Maybe we'll think of some other forum way of doing it, and bring out how Bhagwan has taught us and to do all of this in such a beautiful manner. You remain engrossed in his work and you feel so fulfilled. Any final words, Vinod, before we close for today? It was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for the opportunity, sir. And I think to share this with probably quite a few people who are listening here, I would just like to say to everyone here, right, that quite often one of the most important, there are two, three things that I have learned, which I might want to just share before I close, which is
Sure.
when Swami, says something, quite often we tend to disbelieve in our own potential, and in what can be done. But I think keeping all that aside, if we are just willing to jump into the pool, all that Swami expects from us is our availability. I think nothing else. He doesn't look for talent, he doesn't look for qualification. He literally sort of selects and then gives the qualification. It's almost like that, right? So if he says do something and you think it's good, and he doesn't need to really say it, he has said it in thousands of discourses, right? All we need to do is be available. We have seen that during COVID times too now, and that's completely possible. The other thing I just thought I'd like to share is that, in my opinion, I think happiness is such a more important goal. I feel money is in many ways the most overrated commodity. I think if we could just spend a little more time towards the larger goal of happiness, money will, in any case, money is a tool for happiness, right? Just imagine if somebody said that, I want you to sort of live a happy life, and you collected screwdrivers and hammers, right? Because you don't know which tool you'll need. You'd be foolish, right? You need one screwdriver and one hammer and one pliers. That's all you need. And that's the exact role of money. Why would you go on collecting more and more hammers and screwdrivers? There are more important things that you can do in life, right? And I feel that, if we could just a little bit try and apply that, there is just so much waiting and so much that I think Swami can achieve through every person. And I just feel so blessed and fortunate that he gave all of us an opportunity to play an insignificant role. He doesn't need any of us, right, to do this, right? He's created the sun and the moon. Do you think he needs us for a school and a children's home? Right?
Karthik, what happened to your friend who joined with you in MBA and who was not a typical Sai devotee, but what happened to him?
So he's doing well too in life, and in fact, after some time, much later, right, he had this desire to also go abroad. He went to and joined an Ivy League university, Cornell, and in Cornell he joined something like a higher degree in management. And on his first day of joining there, he sent me an email, by the way, and that email was to this tune, right? He said, "You know what, Vinod? I would like to hereby certify that I'm the world's greatest fool because I've taken an education loan of 1 crore just to learn whatever I've anyway learned at Puttaparthi, just because it's being taught at an Ivy League university." That was his email to me. And of course, I had to convince him, saying, "Don't feel so depressed. I mean, that's fine." He's doing well in life. He's married now. He's currently abroad and also involved in different aspects of Sai Krishna Charitable Trust. And his family, which was initially thinking that, he had also gone mad, is today probably a little more convinced that he also did the right thing by joining for the MBA. In fact, many of my colleagues in who studied with me at different times, right? They probably now see that there was a lot of value in, not just joining the MBA, but in things that Swami has enabled me to be part of.
Beautiful.
So,
Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate your time. And I think I will hopefully, prayerfully bring you back sometimes to discuss certain more flavors of Bhagwan's learning and teachings. So thank you so much, brother.
sure, sir.
I
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciate
And to everyone listening here, I think there are huge volunteering opportunities that are always open with our school. No matter which part of the globe you are in, you can always just, reach out to Abhimanyu sir, and I think he'll be also able to direct you to some of them. And
No, I'm sure
you,
we can always look
you,
at you have
yeah.
anything on the web, right? You have web presence?
Yeah, we have a web presence, but I think in terms of volunteering opportunities and so on, not probably all of them are listed, but definitely you could, reach out. And there are lots of things that I think your time in making a small difference actually makes a huge impact, and there's a lot that can be done.
They can even connect with you remotely and virtually
Sure, sir.
nowadays. Thanks to COVID,
Right.
it has opened up so many opportunities virtually.
Yes. When you can work from home, then why not do seva from
Right.
home too?
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you so much, brothers. Thank you very much for everybody for joining us. And Sairam, I'm sorry for extending time today, but I'm sure you would have enjoyed all the discussions and wonderful things which Karthik has shared with all of us. Thank you, Karthik, and grateful to Bhagwan.
Thank you,
Sairam
Sonia.
to everybody.
Sai Ram. Sai Ram to you. Sai Ram. Thank you to Sonia.